Alrighty, we good to go? Hey everyone, it is podcast time, number 3.
Yeah, me
Can't
and
wait for
Hot
this
Boy
one.
Spicy back with more Bleach. Yeah, we're getting yeah, no, this was definitely like you got the end of Soul Society, and then we're getting to Arrancar, and I'm getting really excited because Arrancar is so freaking good. Yeah, gonna be it's cool. Bleach
Yeah,
is
and
cool and good still.
yeah,
Gasp.
I'm excited. Well, we're just getting into this third episode, but I will do some I'll do some hyping of the next one a little bit, just because for me historically, Hueco Mundo has been the lowest low for me as a Bleach fan.
Mm.
I actually think Hueco Mundo, like before Ichigo gets into Fate Karakura, I think that's the worst stretch of Bleach. Because from my recollection, which is why I'm really excited to see if my the entertainment value for me goes up for this reread, is because from what I remember, I did not care for a lot of the fights in Hueco
Mm-hmm.
Mundo. Like even thinking back to like Uryu and Renji versus, I think it's Espada number 9, right?
No,
The, the,
that's the one Rukia fights.
oh, what what
But
what
you're
number
probably
what number do they fight?
That's it's a science guy, right? Who the
Yeah,
Kairi
yeah,
comes in. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I know the one you're talking about, but yeah, no, because obviously that fight doesn't even like if they're like quote unquote major fights are like the earlier ones, if anything. Like because there's the first batch of fights they get before they like I feel like once they get there basically, but with that the not the guys who are the former Espada.
Mm,
Um, so
mm.
yeah, because like obviously Mayuri takes over that fight, so it's not a major one for maybe there's more there to them losing
Yeah,
than I remember, but
because from what like even that fight, it felt, maybe I'm misremembering. I thought it was one of the major fights. It might have not been, but I just remember the only section I liked is when Mayuri jumped in, and then the how he ends the fight out. That was like the moment that I remember.
mhm.
Everything before that, I only remember the fact that, oh, like Uryu and Renji were fighting. That's pretty much it though. like, and
Yeah, because
I know Uryu fights this one girl, like this one Arankar girl, and then she has and then there's this the slippery guy is in the fight too. I forgot his name. I know he's got the only ability he's got is like he can make himself slippery and the environment slippery. It's like a gag. I don't know. He's like the guy who hangs around Nell, right? I forgot his name, but anyway.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, the meme guy, one of the two memers in the memer squad, So, yeah,
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from because like I will say like generally like yeah my favorite parts of Arrancar and even the stuff in Hoeka Mundo is like I don't imagine you feel that way about Ichigo versus Ulquiorra, right? Even if it's not your favorite
no,
fight, I imagine you
no,
still think like no because it's so fucking good,
yeah, that's the
right?
peak,
So.
Wakamundo for sure. Yeah, 100%.
But no, I don't know. I'm curious because like I'm really interested in Arrancar. To kind of briefly talk about it, what I really want to go into next time is because like basically one of the Bleach videos I want to talk about with or what I have with Aizen. The sort of sequel to my Aizen video to briefly explain where I'm coming at it from is because like in that video I very much talk about Aizen's relationship to Soul Society and how his things about questioning everything, challenging systems, avoiding having too much faith in stuff. Basically, what I want to apply those ideas to Arrancar in the sense that like Aizen created this society for the Arrancar, and he very much like and I think there's elements that he basically how do his ideals work in regards to the Arrancar and their sort of like budding humanity as they're literally like framed after animals because they are come from an animalistic society and of power and violence, and he's sort of making them human. So it's like, how does that factor in? So we don't really get a huge amount of that this time, so I probably won't go into that. But it's
Mm.
like I definitely want to pay attention to that angle, even in the earlier stuff. Though, yeah, I don't know. It's a long arc because I think this is episode 3, and by my because yeah, next time, or I think, hold on, math is hard. Okay, yeah, so we'll be finishing Arrancar in episode 6. So
Okay.
we have 3 episodes of the Arrancar stuff that's coming up, basically. Because, yeah, next time it'll be the first half up to volume 32. The next one we're going to go up to volume 41 because I'm not ending the discussion partway through Ichigo versus Ulquiorra. That is very silly. And then
True.
the last episode, episode 6 will be the of Bleach will be the end of the Arrancar, because it ends like perfectly on that volume, and then we'll do Fullbring, and then the start of the Blood War, and then we'll do the rest of the Blood War in a couple more episodes. Oh yeah, because someone did bring up that if we should read the Can't Fear Your Own World novels. Sorry, I forgot the name off the top of my head, but I'll have a visual on screen. We're going to. I don't know if I said that yet, but I don't know if we're going to do it in 1 episode or 3 episodes. I think we're going to do it is we're going to read the first book and decide then. But the idea is we're going to finish Bleach, then we're going to read Can't Fear Your Own World, and then we're going to do another episode for the sort of extra stuff. So Burn the Witch and the Hell Arc one-shot. So that we'll just have and that'll do it for Bleach, and then I don't know what we're going to do next. But yeah, that's just how I envision the rest of everything going from this. So yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, other comments, or do you have something to say before we go to the
just
comments?
real quick.
Yes.
Not related to anything Bleach. You're cutting out a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it's your internet, just because you kind of go robotic here and there. And I'm looking at my connection. It's not my connection. But you're like fine right now. Just wanted to inform you in case.
Okay,
you
my
get
Audacity looks fine, so it
Okay.
should. So yeah.
Yeah, you're okay
know
right now. You're
what?
a little bit robot. It might even be mine, but it says my connection's completely stable. So I don't know why you're being robotic here and there.
I think I know why it was. It was. I mean, it could be. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully, I fixed it. But because I have a handbrake going converting episodes. So that's probably why.
Yeah, you're completely stable now. Yeah, as soon as you
I just paused it. I paused it, so it's all good. But hopefully it didn't affect Audacity. And I'm really sorry for everyone for the last 7 minutes if it did affect Audacity. And not just Discord, but okay, thank you for pointing that out, because it would really suck if you're like, hey, good podcast. Your audio was completely fucked the whole time, though. It's like, say that earlier.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Yeah. So everything's Gucci now. Let's go. All right.
Okay, so to start off with some other shorter comments. So viewer pointed out, like, because they do bring up in this reading, Byakuya mentioning the sort of reflection, monkey looking into a reflection on the water thing. I guess the way they worded it, they said, "Oh, I assumed it was something he got from research." Like, yeah, Bleach does bring it up. But I see, the thing is I don't. Just a bit of trivia is I don't actually remember for sure if I researched it for Bleach. I might have, but at least the first video script that I put it in, even though the video came out later, was actually my video on Shibuya 15, which is a live action show I did for my Toku month, and it also heavily deals with the sort of like the 3 images and the symbolism there. So I just wanted to point out that, like, just bring it up since it was related to what they were talking about. And then there was one. I thought there was another short comment, but no, all the comments are really long.
Yeah, which is good. It's just we were talking. So earlier, guys, we were talking about it, and that I honestly completely forgot about the comments and completely skipped my mind this past week. And so I was just at work earlier, and I was like skimming through, but like, people like Radman, they have so much to say, and it's all so good. And it's like, but I'm like sitting here trying to retain it all in one moment. So I'm gonna kind of rely on Crafts here to kind of like read over it again, kind of TLDR it for me. Maybe I can come in. Maybe I'll have nothing to say. I don't know. You guys seem to be a lot more equipped than me. Like a lot of you commenters.
No, it definitely feels like that's why I'm really glad for the comments. But there's also a level of where I feel like it's like, because not that we don't have interesting observations, but it's just like, because like I think especially Askin's comment where he talks about like some of the volume and chapter like names, like how Uryu the chapter is called like it's like the Germans. It's named after a German story with a marksman who gets 6 bullets that hit their target no matter what, and then the 7th bullet hits the devil what the devil wants instead, and then he sort of points out how that ties to fucking like Uryu using the silver arrow on Yuabak, and I was like, what? Like, just there's so much. Like, that's the thing about Bleach. There's just so much to it, right? Like, it just. Or another thing he pointed out that also ties to some of the stuff Radman was talking about because of the. Because Radman pointed out how the Kurasuchi's Zanpakuto and Bankai reference the Jizo statue, which is meant to be like a guardian of children. But there's some translation things that basically like his some of the terms and some of the phrases he used refer to like abortion basically, or ripping a baby out of a woman,
Yeah.
and that ties to Ryu becoming a pediatrician, like a doctor for children, like that. It just further deepens what I was talking about with Kurasuchi being like a complete the complete opposite of what Ryu cares about, and like what he feels about how he feels about doctors, and just representing the negative aspect, like, you know. So just little things like just there's so much to Bleach. It's so good. It's always nice to hear just these things, because it's like, oh yeah, cool. Because like, I don't know, I guess maybe our podcast is too broad, but I feel you could do like a chapter to chapter analysis of Bleach. I feel like, because it's just,
probably could.
I mean,
yeah.
you could do that
or
with
at
anything,
the very least. Yeah, at the very least,
so,
like I would say a volume, right? Like going volume.
That would
by
probably
volume,
be the more
probably
easy.
do.
Yeah, just yeah, just because it's like you just go into each chapter, like the title of the chapter and the what happens. Like it's just that's one of the things I like about Bleach. I just feel like there's so much to, and long stories in general, but there's just always so much to go into, and it's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys, God, like you guys are so smart. And not only like smart, it's like you guys have been taking the time to really try your best to bridge the gap between yourselves and Kubo. And I greatly admire that, and I appreciate that, especially as someone like me who hasn't really dived into Bleach as much as I have like other series like One Piece or Naruto, for instance. I've dived into Naruto way more, thought about it way more than Bleach, and now seeing all these comments, it's like I'm being enlightened. It's like I'm like, dude, I should have been thinking this much about Bleach, because there's potentially more stuff to grab in Bleach, just because that a lot of things aren't spelled out. And it's got me pretty motivated now, especially when we're getting into the more symbolistic stuff in the series. Not that Soul Society doesn't have some of that, but I feel like like the deeper you get into Bleach, the more subtext there is. And especially now that we're here, I'm wondering how much I'm going to pick up on, and or if I'm still going to be sort of in the dark compared to at least you guys, or I'll feel that way anyway. It'll be interesting to see, especially because I want to at least make one video coming off this, so like 1,000-Year Blood War video or whatever. But
yeah, and I have at least 2, so maybe 3.
Nice. Can't wait.
So another thing Radman brought up that I thought was interesting was because he talks about Rukia and her sort of like or how does he word it with because it was regarding the toxic masculinity thing, where it's like people have been criticized Rukia for spewing toxic masculine rhetoric onto Ichigo, like calling him a sissy, and sort of, you know, like she even does that in this reading when she's like, you know, she kind of he gets his shit together after when the Soul Reapers come in after the Arrancar attack, and I just remember the way she you know, there's a sort of you know, that element is there with her sort of kicking Ichigo back into gear, I guess. And I feel like I was going to make another observation about that, because I realized something. I
mean, I can just make a pretty broad one.
Go for
I
it.
guess.
Well,
My even though I've never really thought about it, I guess subconsciously, probably, I guess what registered is that, well, it's less so be a man and more so, you know, be an adult. And I know it sounds weird given that Ichigo is a high schooler, but the way I see it is Rukia saved Ichigo from a particular circumstance, and he returned the favor by saving her from her circumstance. So at this point, they're essentially peers. Rukia is a lot older than Ichigo, but they look at each other like eye to eye. So to her, Ichigo is as much of an adult as she is, right? Like the idea of like his age, not to bring the age is just a number problematic meme, but it kind of is the case in this in their dynamic. So when I read those lines, I guess I'm subliminally thinking like she's just saying like, you know, grow up, you know, like you've endured worse than this, you know, you can pick yourself up like an adult, like a man, you know. The difference between being a boy and a man is that, you know, one is an adult and one's a kid. So that's the way I do not think of it as gender. It's just never registered for me.
No, that's fair. I'm just gonna I'm trying to go back to the chapter and just see if I can get it better. It's it's harder back than I thought. I got the whole magazine up and it's like, oh jeez. I mean, in general, like I guess we're jumping around a bit, which we were before too. But I do really like that chapter with just like the Soul Reapers coming in as students is just very funny to me
Yeah,
because it's like they're just in disguise, like especially like Ikaku, who's very obviously a fucking adult. And he's just like, yeah, I'm a high schooler though, and it's like, wait, hold on, something's wrong.
Well,
I can feel it.
I mean, Rangiku is like, I feel like even
Yeah,
the
no,
more
she,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
it's like crazy, and it's like she's definitely also like going completely against dress code, like it's in a crazy fashion too. So it's just funny to see. But like, you know, given the environment of the school with their teacher, the only teacher we've seen of this school in Bleach, she'd probably just kind of be like, yeah, you know, new people, I guess. Let's welcome with open arms. The teacher is someone that I appreciate her presence, as minimal as it is. I do appreciate her presence in the story. Like the little I don't remember what transitionary segment it's in where she just goes, well, those hoodlums never show up anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. I think it's right after Soul Society.
Should a teacher really be saying that?
Then
someone remarks on that, and
it's funny. It's fun. Yeah, I do every little presence in Karakura. I appreciate immensely. Which is it's surprising that Kubo can balance it so well. When we come back to Karakura, it still feels so alive and still feels, to me at least, and I don't know if you disagree with this, to me it feels like, at least at this point in the story, it feels as important as the stuff that we just had in Soul Society, which I think is I think is a huge feat in of itself, that Kubo is able to pull that off. Will that persist later on? I don't, you know, in this reread, I don't know. We'll see.
But yeah, I was gonna go on and talk more about Bleach, but I'm realizing, wait, no, we didn't really finish talking about the comments, because Redman also brings up like the Shiba clan and just how they seem to have fallen out of favor, and like there's a whole untold story there that seems really interesting, but we never get a lot of insight onto that, which is just, I don't know, it's neat to think about, and just like, yeah, that is a thing that we did, because I feel like, you know, going forward we see a lot less of Kukaku and Ganju, and even though Akayan we do get a bit like retroactively, or, you know, posthumously for in Rukia's fight in the upcoming stuff, but yeah.
Which, by the way, is another highlight for me in Hakumen. That fight, I fucking love that fight.
It's so good. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, wait, what were you just? God, I literally forgot. I started thinking about the fight. What were you saying before that? Before
I was just
the Shiba family. The Shiba family. Yeah.
Yes.
The Shiba family. Yeah. And I feel like we're going to come across that more and more. And I'm so glad we have someone like Radman in the comments, because he'll probably point it out every time. And I'm going to keep it in mind every time as well. Because, I mean, it is cool to think. I mean, because I know Kubo has already retroactively done stuff. For instance, one of the only like live reaction segments I'm planning in this reread is actually Ichigo versus Ulquiorra, because Radman in DMs, he sent me a Ulquiorra flashback that I did not know existed, because it didn't release in the official. And I need to send you this document, by the way. Don't let me forget.
I don't remember hearing about this.
It has also there's a special chapter too of Tatsuki that was never released in the volumes too. So I already read that. Yeah, there's like you know how like Mizuru's got his own like special chapter, and all these characters get their own special. Well, Tatsuki actually has one as well, and it takes place chronologically the day after the Ichigo visits his mom's funeral stuff, like the Grand Fisher stuff. It takes place a day after that. Yeah, so I completely forgot. Like, he sent me this doc. I need to send it to you too, because you should also read the Tatsuki one. And you need to read once you read the fight with Ulquiorra, I guess, read the flashback too. I plan to actually live react to that, because it will be like a first time me reacting to at least that special chapter. So.
Gotcha. And then you'll be reading like Ichigo vs. Ulquiorra right after that is the plan, or
so no. So right, yeah. So at least what Radman told me is like read the fight and then read the chapter.
Oh, read the fight and then read the chapter. Gotcha. Okay.
Unless I'm misremembering, he could be roasting me in these comments saying like, bro, no, it's I told you the reverse. Which, you know, if that happens, you know, I'll just be corrected. But yeah, so I plan to do that. That'll be cool. And the Tatsuki one was really short, really. All of these point chapters, the little intermediary chapters,
Mhm.
that Kubo does are all brilliant. The Tasky one is no different. So yeah,
No,
definitely.
we didn't talk about the Mizuhiro one, but I did think it was like interesting just thinking about this character and what his deal is, even though he's so minor, relatively speaking. But it's like
Yeah,
what we, just like how the sort of subtext and what's going on in that chapter, just it's how that might relate to him and his perspective, and it's just like, yeah, I really like. And yeah, we get a few chapters like that in this reading too, like especially the one with Ichigo is so God, him wanting the power to change,
yeah, yeah.
God.
I even tweeted about that chapter too. But the
I think
problem
that's
is,
probably why I was thinking about it. But
yeah,
yeah,
the tweet limit. The problem is, like, I had way more to say, but there's like a fucking tweet limit, and I didn't want to just. No, I didn't want to. I
you
was
didn't
also
want to
at
make a
work too.
thread, and
Yeah, I was
yeah,
also
oh
at
yeah,
work
I
too,
can
and I
see.
was like, nah, I hate typing in general. So, I'll talk about it. I'll talk
Understandable.
about it here. It's better anyway. So, we'll get to talking about it. But yeah, so in this read through, we start off. I think it is. So Kimpachi is still fighting Tosen and Komamura, right? And then Yoruichi and
Oh, I was gonna
Soifon
bring
just
up more
start.
comments. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
Um,
good. True.
there's still a
No,
bunch
that's right. Here are
more.
your comments. Yeah.
I'll just try. So yeah, Melancholic Fool mentioned. I had a few. One of them mentions basically responding to us responding to comments, if that makes with me, because and the novel stuff that I'm a bit like, because he talks about how the other person with the Ichika's name neglected to mention how like Orihime was the one who chose the flowers, and her favorite, and she chose the strawberry flowers because they're her favorite flower. And it's like, and there's also just an aspect of the novel where, or a subplot where it's also like Ruki and Renji, or Renji setting up like a scenario for Ichigo to ask Orihime out. So it's like it's very like so just adding some context that was lost in the comment I was
Oh,
responding to. And then they also talk
yeah.
about how in the Can't Fear Your Own World scene with Aizen talking about Tosen, he kind of compares the way Aizen talks about Tosen to the way Aizen talks about Momo, where they're very clearly a subordinate and not
Yes.
someone who could be an equal like Gin.
Yes.
Which so I just wanted to highlight that one because it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Good
And
observation. Yeah.
they also point out how they think maybe the cutting off the arms thing isn't as meaningful as I thought it might be, and I keep thinking about it more, and it's like, yeah, I'm not coming up to a solid reading about it, so I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't, because like I didn't talk about Kukaku, who's missing a right arm, so she's missing the ability to stay stagnant, I guess, and it's like, well, that doesn't seem. I don't know. I mean, she's pretty willing to go against Soul Society, but I don't know if I'm willing to go that far as like and then I think
It
Grimjaw
might just
lost an
come down to
arm,
Kubo has
and I
a
was just
proclivity for right arms. It might just come down to
yeah,
that.
yeah, I don't know. So I was just because like I was just and it's like yeah, and then also him and someone else who let me find it yeah, Chasing Hayes brought up Unohana's death, and Melancholic Fool brought up the it was Noitora and Yamamoto. Though in their case, he was they were more talking about like the fact that they died standing up and comparing that to Whitebeard's death. Where I'm pretty I don't think they mean this because like I was more focusing on like the idea of it being like a noble or glorious or a
Yeah.
beautiful death, so to speak. Where I don't, I don't. Unohana's I'm definitely interested in. I mean, I'm gonna think about it when I get to all those, regardless. And I'm glad people are pointing out these deaths for me to, because it's like I said, it was a burgeoning idea of just how death is treated in Bleach. And I do need to go through some. They're just highlighting moments for me that I want to think about but especially like Yamamoto's, I definitely don't think is meant to be a beautiful death because like the fucking rain starts literally once he dies, right? Like
Mhm.
because his flame was holding it back, and just like the fact that his death, like he's literally sacrificed himself to try and kill Yobak, and it was a fucking double, and it didn't amount to anything. It's like, oh, unfortunate. So yeah, but anyway, um, uh. I don't know. There's some. I tried to heart a lot of the comments that I was interested in responding to. Because like I'm just I think I've talked about most if not all of the ones that I wanted to, but most of them is just like again, especially like the big ones. There's just so many details and interesting points that I basically just be reading the comment aloud. So I'd recommend just going to check them out because they're all
Yeah.
interesting. There are
Yeah.
lots of interesting ones. And
For sure,
could you
guys.
please, yeah.
Yeah. Go check these
Yeah,
out. A lot of
you
people
know,
have a lot of great observations. And
yeah, please keep it up. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to write out comments for all the little things that we're not talking about. Because, or so like Radman went more into the Ichigo versus Kabachi fight because yeah, like there's so many like he highlighted specifics about like the art and presentation that we kind of glossed over. Even though I still like God, because it's the fucking
yeah,
and he also pointed out how like Ichigo is more fearful during that fight than he like maybe ever is. Basically, because like
yeah.
Kenpachi inspires a fear in Ichigo that no one else does, which is really
Yeah,
cool
and
to
I
think
think,
about
and
because
when I read that, I immediately connected it to the end of Soul Society, where we don't ever really see Ichigo run from anyone. Like he's very haughty. He's always, if anyone ever like challenges him, especially unprovoked, Ichigo's like, hey, you coming up to me, bro? Like that's Ichigo. That's the Ichigo we know. To see Ichigo like have a guy coming up to him and going like, all right, yeah, all right, bro, like we got to duke it out. Like to see Ichigo just like flat out go like, hell no, I'm fucking out of here. Like you're scary. Like it is now that Radman put it into perspective. It's like, yeah, you know what, that like, Kenpachi is pretty much the only guy that can make Ichigo do that. Because he's a pretty feisty teenager, and to see that it is pretty uncharacteristic of him, which just speaks to Kenpachi. It's cool. It's cool.
yeah. All right, but now we can get back into the discussion because we have that about covers it for the comments, and yeah, we start off with Byakuya versus Renji, the conclusion of that, and while Kenpachi was fighting Tosen and Komamura.
Yeah, and
so yeah, what did you want to talk about first specifically?
So I had some observations there. So first of all, the more I don't want to say uninteresting. Everything's interesting. Particularly actually in this fight, the more you think about it, the more interesting it is, especially given Tosen's allegiances. But you could really look at Kenpachi defeating Tosen's Bankai as like the perfect representation of the idea of mindset trumping all in battle. Because Kenpachi, he didn't let anything phase him. Because from what my interpretation is, and I don't even think this is an interpretation, this is just something that Kubo probably, as he was writing, he's like, readers will probably keep this in mind, is that like when you correlate this with the mindset idea, you automatically start thinking of, the reason why Tosen's probably had such like a high success rate with this Bankai is like when people are deprived of so many senses, they automatically panic because they're so used to being able to like put those senses to their full use and apply them in battle. And being robbed of even one is like, it's unnerving, right? So again, he probably won the battle before it ever even really started as soon as he initiated his Bankai. So as soon as he initiated his Bankai, the battle was probably already over. This is probably the first time ever he's had someone like actually trying to contest it that's kind of under the spell. And it's simply because of that mindset matters factor. It's like mindset overall. If your mindset is there, you can truly transcend. And it's also the idea of like your natural center, like your center inside within yourself, right? That Ichigo constantly has to find like Kenpachi's center, his form of balance is being immersed in the bloodthirsty atmosphere of battle. So in actuality, being in this battle where his blood is splashing around is actually his yin and yang. It's his piece. He's at balance here. He's in his element. So in actuality, he's actually being amplified, if anything, by Tosen's attack. So it's the reverse of what Tosen's used to. So it's this really cool thing in the way they battle. Is how like Kenpachi is actually like the perfect counter to someone like Tosen. And it's simply due to his natural proclivities in battle. And I thought that was really cool looking at it from that perspective. I don't know if you, because I was going to go more into Tosen, so if you want to add anything onto that, I don't know if you have anything to say.
I mean, just about the fact that, like, because he's obviously working for Aizen at this point. I think maybe someone in the comments brought it up. There's so many long comments, but just like he's because he's fighting for Soul Society in that moment, but he's going against his ideals because he believes in justice and he believes Soul Society needs to face the justice it deserves for the loss that he's experienced in his life. So like he's there's a he's literally fighting someone who's also going against Soul Society. So there's a sort of contradiction in his actions and his true desires, if that makes sense, because he's playing the part in a sense. So there's also a level at which he's not following his own code of justice in that moment because he's fighting someone. I mean, he is fighting a Soul Reaper who he does want gone at the end of the day. That was
so
just
you're going into things that I was going to kind of go into as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I think firstly there's questions as to whether Tosen's actually really trying in this battle at all. Because if you think about it,
fair.
His side only benefits by keeping this battle going. His side only, because again, this is more chaos to add to the atmosphere to help Aizen's plan initiate. So in actuality, Tosen's probably trying to extend this fight as much as possible. Which I think is a really cool thought. And especially given the later context of where Tosen seems to easily be able to dismantle Grimmjow. I mean, Grimmjow was caught off guard, but it's he's probably holding back. True. He's probably holding back a lot here, just because it's better for his side.
That makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that actually.
Yeah, and I'll touch more on that. Oh my God! Speak of the devil. I just got a message from Radman. He's spiritually connected to me right now. But anyway, I'll touch a little bit more because I was leading more with something else there in regards to Tosen's objectives in regards to Komamura, his dynamic. But before that, I kind of want to get into his flashback a little bit. And the issue is the notes I have for this are a little bit too I think I'm just gonna read it. I'm just gonna read what I wrote. You can tell me how you feel about it, because I don't really know how to put this into frank terms. So Tosen wants the power to impose peace. Perhaps a part of that is his regret over not imposing his feelings onto that Soul Reaper woman who later dies in his flashback. Perhaps since he couldn't see the same world she could, he was afraid he'd shroud her light in the darkness he can only see. Because he can only see darkness after all. That's why he likes clouds, probably because he can only feel them, like when they block out the harsh rays in summertime. But he can't see how they darken a bright world. The kind of world she wanted to make, he could never visualize, which is why his version of a new world is through Aizen, in the darkness, so to speak. It's a comforting familiarity. And the only justice he can truly perceive, I guess. I don't know. I'm thinking about it very symbolically. I know it's again. That's why I said I can't really put it into frank terminology because it's super symbol. But I just saw a lot of symbolism there with light and dark, being able to only feel what clouds can do rather than perceive what they do.
As far as the symbol, Yamamoto is fire, right? He is light. He is heat. So it would make and he's the leader of Soul Society. So, so I understand it from a symbolic way, but I'm trying to think of how that goes back to the. What does it mean in the sense for because his justice and what he disagree actually there's now that I think about it the Phoenix also has a motif of fire which and cremation perhaps so there is the element of which the light and the fire in an extreme is negative and so Tosen in clinging to dark Koyakamunda doesn't have a sun, it doesn't have light in that sense. So true. It's so I hadn't thought about it like that where it's because it does have this absolute rejection, he's not trying to solve it from with because Ichigo manages to change things by on a more personal level by affecting people directly, and that in turn sort of affecting Soul Society as a whole. The biggest example probably being in the Fullbring arc, where they literally a bunch of Soul Reapers literally gathered their power so that they can give Ichigo his Soul Reaper powers back. Which is literally the reason that Rukio is going to get executed, was for giving her Soul Reaper powers to a human, right? They all break that rule because Ichigo changed Soul Society, right? Where Aizen wants Soul Society to change as well, but the way he does it doesn't accomplish any, because it's not he's not achieving results because these Soul Reapers aren't questioning themselves and their institutions, then he's just going to just tear it all down, basically. But yeah, and that's where Tosen, if this fire can't be quelled, then they'll just put it out. That's an interesting way to frame it.
Thank you for adding to that. I know it's a little bit nebulous, but you helped it out, I think. Um, yeah, and then also I think Komomoto in this fight is really interesting because if you
Hmm.
think about it, in this fight he's more blind than Tosin, especially when it
Hmm.
comes to the concept of justice. You think about his
Okay.
justice. His justice lies, it's rooted in loyalty, first and foremost. Loyalty to the system because he's loyal to Yamamoto, and Yamamoto is essentially the head of the system, right? So
Right.
he's as complacent as everyone else because it's sort of this blind justice that he can't see any of its faults because to him the faults are irrelevant to his duty, and his duty is it's this it's this great appreciation for the man who essentially saved him, and this makes for again like it makes him more blind than Tosin because his justice is predicated on appeasing this man because of what he's done for him, which isn't really justice at all, right? Because
Hmm.
justice requires some level of objectivity to be able to distinguish right and wrong. So and it's even more interesting when you look at his helmet and how that kind of uh, symbolizes this. In a sense, it does because when you think about the reason why he puts on the helmet, it's because he doesn't want to come across as beastly. He doesn't want to come across as unrefined in this whole.
Hmm.
I don't want to call it holy, but it's this. Yeah, it's the Seirete. It's a place distinct from the Rokongai in that it is not. It's not a place of savagery. It's a place of refinement and a place of grace. And his
Nobility
appearance,
and class. Yes,
yes, and
for
his
sure.
appearance definitely contrasts that. But the issue comes in when you think about like how like well in actuality, it if you take off the helmet, but you're still a captain class. In actuality, the first thing people are going to see from you is not your fiendish face or whatever, but instead like your graceful bankai or your supreme power that's captain worthy. That first and foremost is what people would be seeing. But
Hmm.
rather he hides behind a helmet because his perception first and foremost is already pretty warped. Is that like, oh, this is a place where it's grace and refinement above all, rather than like your actual abilities and capabilities as a captain, what you can bring to the 13 core. And it seems almost backwards. It really does. It's that like why first and foremost is he thinking of like his beastly appearance rather than like his asset, his valuable assets that he provides to the 13 court guard squads, right? It's really weird, and it kind of speaks to the class distinctions between the Rokongai and the Seirete, because I don't really remember, but I'd imagine Komamura comes from the Rokongai, which is why he probably has this backwards, thought in that like, oh, I need to hide my
Hmm.
face rather than like, no, I should show it proudly because I have abilities worth something here. So my face shouldn't matter. My beastly form shouldn't matter when it comes to what I can give it. But again, I don't remember. So someone maybe remind me if he is from the Rokongai, because I know
Well,
he's
because
he's
yeah, I was gonna say in Buddhist cosmology there is basically a beast hell of sorts that tied to animals, and so, but I don't know how if how that works into Bleach's cosmology and metaphysics and stuff. Um, but I do remember we do see in a brief scene where we see another person, an talking animal person who remember he unlocks Komamura's power in the
yes, I
Thousand
do
Year Flood
remember
War.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So, but I don't remember where that is. Like, is it just another part of like this plane of Soul Society, or is it like yeah, which is what I assume initially.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how the mechanics work there because
And
like I
regardless, they're
mean
probably seen as less than Soul Reapers anyway, because they're they're
that's
like well,
one of the things that was brought up to me regarding Komamura later is how in Buddhism there's kind of like a hierarchy of reincarnation where the idea is like part of the process of reincarnation is you do reincarnate as like bugs and animals because part of that journey is like relevant to spiritual awakening. To basically like, there's things your soul has to understand through being an animal to ultimately
oh,
reach enlightenment, but you can't reach enlightenment by being an animal. Basically, like it's so
oh,
that's thus it's lower on the chain of reincarnation. So that's why Komamura's because Komamura basically becomes an animal. He loses his sapience, right? From the after the 1,000 Year Blood War fight, from his sacrifice for vengeance, basically. And so that's why it's like negative in a sense, because he's lost his humanity, and he's further back on the cycle of reincarnation, basically. That's what he loses in a sense. So going way ahead, but I just want to bring that up in regards to like
adds another layer that I wasn't thinking of. Okay, nice, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay,
and I'll add on to that is because like, you know, obviously Kubo could write the entire story just on like because like the fact that the Hell arc is literally only a thing like it comes up once in like the first arc, and then it's apparently the next part of Bleach, right, where it's like they just wrote an entire 70-volume story like barely bringing up this whole plane of existence in the world in this setting. Right, so so I don't know what the full picture is, you know, in a sense. That's why I brought up the idea of the Beast Hell.
Cool.
But and that's why even that itself is kind of a weird translation.
That is a really cool perspective. Nice. Yeah, I'm going to keep that in
mind.
But
to bring up some of the things that are probably a bit more straightforward is just like, which, you know, it doesn't detract from how interesting they are. It's just like, because you were talking about, like, because, Komura, he has a beastly appearance and he hides himself. Kenpachi doesn't give a fuck, and he's definitely like more of an animal. Like he is, like he's the only captain.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're leading the same place I was. Nice.
Because he's the only captain who didn't pass the captain exam. You know, he got there on raw power alone. Like he's very much kind of from that Rukon guy, the outside of Soul Society, you know, street rat kind of person. Like we see a flashback with him and Ikaku later, and where he kind of came from the same sort of position in a sense. Mm-hmm. But also just like it even ties into like Komamura being blind, because he doesn't see Kenpachi at all, right? He's like, oh, you're just a killer. Kenpachi doesn't want his opponents to die, because if they die, that means that he doesn't get a chance to fight them in the future, right? And but he's also like, because he only cares about fighting, he even says like, yeah, I guess I'm a killer. He just sort of accepts how Komamura sees him, because only fighting matters to him. Like he is a beast without integrity or his own ideals in a sense.
Oh yeah, he literally says like, hey, if I'm the villain, I'm the villain. He says he's so good, which is it's funny too, because I want to see, because I remember later on not caring as much for Kenpachi. Again, this is another thing that I'm really waiting to see if some of my perspective shifts on that. If I keep loving Kenpachi the exact same as I do in Soul Society. But on that topic, the contrasting that contrasting element of two characters, I would say it's kind of the same for Tosin as well, in regards to Kenpachi, is because ironically, Kenpachi is unintentionally fighting for kind of the right side, the side of change, the people that are trying to show the Seirete and the Soul Reapers the error of their ways, and the error of like this fragile stagnation that they've let persist in their land. And whereas Tosin is like intentionally fighting for a very misguided side, which is, Aizen stripping it all down from its roots, kind of mentality, which is funny too, because, Tosin's the more level, on the exterior, who's the more level-headed one, concise, this is justice, we got to do this. And Kenpachi's like, hey, I want to fight people, man. But like, ironically, he's on the superior side, the side that will ultimately win out by the end of Arankar, right? So it's funny when you look at it that way too. Yeah,
for sure. I'm not sure if I have that much more to say about this fight, but it's still really good. And just Kenpachi, I love that the way he like overcomes Tosin's ability, where he just like grabs the sword that's inside of him and he's like, I can see you now, and it's like, oh fuck.
And it's even cooler because he gives him another chance. He wants to extend the fight because he's having fun. This is like a new experience for him. So he's like, all right, come at me again. He's like, he slashes him a little bit, but he doesn't end the fight with it. And he's like, all right, implying that like it wasn't like he intentionally didn't cut him very deep so that he can keep the fight going. And it's like, okay, this guy is he's fun.
So
he's
good.
Fun. Yeah.
I really hope you come to continue to like him, because he gets some really good stuff going forward, I think. Anyway,
right.
what do we talk
after
about
this,
next?
there's the
So I was gonna say though, just because on the topic, because last we've been talking about the humor a bit, and I remember saying like, "Oh man, I couldn't tell you any jokes that happened after this." And I'm like, how the fuck do I forget
Yeah.
Ichigo saving
L.
Rukia and
L.
just tossing Rukia like a fucking missile into Renji's arms? Like you get this super heartfelt, like cool moment where hit with him stopping the Phoenix, and it's just fucking awesome and hype as shit. And then he just grabs Rukia, and then he just like chucks her, like the person he's been trying to protect and save for so long, and he just fucking hurls her like a goddamn fucking wet sack of potatoes. It's just like that. I mixed some
True
metaphors there.
L
But
plus
anyway,
ratio from the main man Ichigo, showing you that you are misguided in your memory.
it's so funny. Holy shit!
No,
How the fuck?
it's
Like,
fucking
oh my god.
that entire sequence is like for like I wrote a little bit about it. I have some notes about it. For so many reasons, just that one segment of the execution when Ichigo pops in is like it is like one of those shonen peaks that you just think back to. You're thinking about like your adventures on shonen, on these shonen stories in general. Like this moment is like way up there. I feel like for a lot of people, like the community in general, when they think of Bleach, especially when you think of Soul Society, you think of this scene on the execution grounds and Ichigo flying in with, you know, he's dripped out even more than he ever has been before, you know, and looking, yeah, you know, I don't know, stopping the Firebird, you know, the hype from the lower captains going, what? He stopped the thousands or I don't remember the exact. I think it's
Millions.
It
It's like the strength of a million Zanpakuto or
millions.
something
It's
like
just
that.
crazy, which is actually fucking crazy. It was a million Zanpakuto, and he's stopping it. But I guess I guess Kubo's way of saying like, hey guys, it's not, you know. He breathes some sentience into the bird by like saying like the bird didn't expect someone to come and stop it. So it's like, oh, now this time, like, he's not going to let Ichigo stop him kind of thing. It's like, okay, so he's not like, it's not like he's like all powerful God mode, and which we kind of already get that sense anyway by the end with Aizen, that Aizen is all powerful God mode and Ichigo is far from it anyway. So I guess this talking point doesn't even matter, but you know, just, but in regards to the Firebird being like the animated what is it, the Sokyo, is it Sokyo?
I think so.
Yeah, because I feel like that sounds way too similar to the Hogyoku, but maybe that's the point.
I mean, well, it's that it might sound similar just because the syllables happen to rhyme, but they can, you know, even the same sounding thing can, like, ki can be monkey or not, or yellow or tree, right, based on the context, you know, like Kizaru is yellow monkey, but ki also means tree, so it's like, you know, it's not which, you know, so it's, that's just the same, you know, word, which is a one syllable word, right, and it can mean different things based on the context. So, you know, so changing a couple syllables that can radically transform a word, I would say. So even though they do rhyme, that is correct, like very closely.
That's
so
it,
yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway, what were you gonna say about the Sokoku?
So I think it's interesting that it
Sokoku,
becomes a Firebird, more specifically fire. Like, was this blade crafted using Yamamoto's power as a base? Because when I saw the fire, I immediately thought of Yamamoto, and even more so, like, fire is pretty fitting because, you know, in a lot of cultures, fire is seen as like purifying or liberating the soul, and it's like it's a cleansing.
I did
factor,
mention
right?
cremation earlier. Yeah,
right. It's like a cleansing factor. So essentially, this is the way. This is mercy for the soul reapers, because we're essentially cleansing. This soul reaper's whole duty is to cleanse souls, right? And for their soul to be stained, it's kind of like a stain on their entire system. So in order to rid that stain, well, I mean, how do you can't do the same thing that you do for hollows to a soul reaper. So what's the next best thing? Oh, cleanse it with fire. You know, fire is like a cleansing element. You know, we absolve the soul reaper of their sins. So it's kind of like a mercy thing. It's like, hey, you know, we're keeping not only the soul society pure, but we're purifying you as well from your sins. So when I thought about it that way, I was like, oh, like from their perspective, this is probably like very merciful, because this is like they're maintaining Rukia's honor this way, in a sense. Like, it's a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? there's the word is, by the way, a very common word in the English vocabulary. This just sometimes happens to me where I cannot think of the word. It's a whatever. Anyway, regardless, I thought it was cool. The fire being specifically, I normally thought Yamamoto, but I thought of like, oh yeah, like it's associated with cleansing the soul, right?
Yeah.
But hopefully I can think of that word in the next 2 minutes.
Well, what I was going to point out about the phoenix is that it's, the mythological thing with the phoenix is that when it dies, it's reborn, basically. So there's a cycle of reincarnation in the phoenix as well. So, like, which factor, because the soul reapers, they purify souls so they can traverse between worlds. So it's like, they've become very prideful and noble and important about their role in things as these sort of managers of death. Like I sort of talked about with Yumachika, seeing death as beautiful, or seeking beautiful death in a sense. But so they symbolize their execution, with a phoenix, something that also because Rukia's soul it's not like it's being destroyed like a Quincy would destroy it. It's going back into the cycle basically. So but of course, because like I guess the final like capstone to my point about like death not being portrayed as beautiful is that like because ultimately the series does sort of posit that death is like an inherent and necessary part of human experience, right? Where it's because basic because Yobak is functionally immortal, right? So he's so it's so like and he as I've heard it explained, I think maybe it's explored more in Camp Fear Unworld, but basically what he's trying to do is Ruki even says it when she's talking about the Quincy in the original arc. She's talking about how like if the balance is shifted too much, then the difference between life and death, there is no difference between life and death, and it just becomes chaos, which is how she sees it. But how had explained to me a while ago was basically it ties into sort of the Christian belief of the immortal soul, where there is no reincarnation. Like you have one soul, and then it will just continue to exist forever in some other plane of existence once you die. So that's basically closer to what like Yobak is attempting to do, basically, where he's trying to change the whole mechanics of the world so that reincarnation doesn't happen anymore, but souls, continue to exist until they're erased by the Quincy's. So, not necessarily better or worse than what's going on now, but obviously the series makes its stance about, like death and why. So, but that's just why I think that the way it portrays, because it doesn't make death glorious, but it still says it's like this is a necessary thing, even if ultimately like they're like we see now like with how Soul Society treats it, it's like they're maybe a bit too eager to kill in a sense. Like the fact that like Ukitake says, it's like why the fuck are the Ryoka the ones who are trying to save Rukia and not like one of our own, right? Like why are they so eager to just cast her out and have her killed, right? Like just that level of like negligence and lack of respect of death, basically. So
Cool. Yeah, and I have more to say on but I'm obviously that we're far away from getting the Yuha stuff too, but so I'll save a lot of those talking points for later on. But you got more to say on that, or actually for the execution, I guess. Do you have anything to say on Yoruichi and Soifan?
I mean, I just some general things about their conflict and how, because like. I think there's just an aspect of Bleach that's very, especially in Thousand Year Blood War, where it's like, the next generation and like moving forward. But Soifan is a character who she kind of like is ignorant of her past in a sense. Like like she thinks she's going forward and surpassing the Elder in an arc that's very much about like the stagnant tradition being this domineering force. But as she finds out, Yoriichi is still growing on her own, and she like in some ways has grown in ways that Soifan never even knew about. With her,
she's playing outside the confines of the system, right? Yeah.
Yes. Probably more than that, but did you? I assume you have things to say about it.
Not really, because a lot of that is, exactly what you said. This my thoughts on it, precisely, and especially because Soifan, her growth would always be stunted because she's doing this out of a concession rather than out of an actual ambitious obligation. Like since Yoruichi wasn't there, her secondary option, her second best, which is always a lot further away from the first best than the third best is away from the second best, right? That second place is always a very, like, even if you, Even if you think of how sports work, there's like a common meme where it's like first place, yeah, I did it. Second place is like Doomerville, and third place is like, yeah, I'm one of the best. It's like it always feels really so having that like that sort of concessionary secondary role where, but in actuality, she always wanted to be by Yoruichi's side with Yoruichi as the leader. She wanted that back to constantly, motivate her to get better, and not having that is it's sort of this vapid sit upon, the top. It's just very, it's not meaningful for her. So of course she's not. So on two levels, her growth is going to be stunted. Being always in the confines of the system, especially such a stagnant system like the Seirete and the Soul Reapers are, but also the fact that she doesn't even want to be in this position. She wants Yoruichi to be here,
Yeah. But I guess two other things I had to note is, one, I just thought it was interesting how, because originally she was called Shaolin Fawn, but she renamed herself Soy Fawn, and it's mentioned that she named herself after one of her ancestors. So there's a level of like respect for the past and her lineage and her tradition, basically in her name. But then I also kind of felt like with her, the way, like, because she ultimately felt betrayed by Yoruichi. She said, why didn't you take me with you at the end of their fight? Because she very much was putting Yoruichi on, in a way she's kind of comparable to Momo, I think, because both of them had a senior that they were putting on a pedestal. The difference is that Momo, even when Aizen fully rejected her, she kind of still held on to her idea of Aizen because that was so important to her. Where Soifan sort of went in the opposite direction and probably a bit too far, because obviously, like, she was able to like reconnect with Yoruichi in some ways, but like she made so much of her relationship with Yoruichi negative out of that sort of bitterness and sadness of being abandoned, basically. So there's still a negative, even though she's ultimately like kind of doing what Aizen, rejecting her sort of like preconceptions and faith that she had, but also like she did so at a, she still wasn't looking at Yoruichi either, like, even though she'd rejected her, if that makes sense. So she's kind of like the opposite of Momo in a way, but still in a flawed way, I guess, if that makes sense.
That's a really cool way to look at it, bouncing those two characters off each other. Yeah, no, that's cool. I hadn't thought about it in relation to Momo, but yeah, you're right. I guess that's all in that fight.
Yeah.
So Ichigo, Byakuya, epic style. Right, that's the next confrontation.
Well, we did skip over Byakuya versus Renji, but I'm not sure if we have much more to say about it, because I feel like we talked about it last time. Just because it's like, because I just think it's a cool fight with, like, the way it ends with Byakuya going, "Oh, your fangs did reach me," and finally recognizing Renji, and Renji having, actually overcome himself and overcome his fear of Byakuya, like, his trembling, to the point that, even if he did, like, when he's like, "Oh, you're down to one knee," and it's like, "Let's fucking go!" Like, he's actually like making progress against Byakuya. It's so cool. Yeah.
And, admittedly, I had completely forgotten about the scene with him and that one Soul Reaper no-name guy, where he was like Renji, like, I've always respected you, and but, I'm sure what you're doing, you think is actually just and stuff, and, you march on, because I still believe you. I was like, damn, that's actually a really good scene for Renji. That's a really cool scene. I didn't remember that at all. I don't know why. It's a good scene. I was like, based, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, Renji's got
I know the one you're talking about, because it's just, because like Renji, it's what you were just talking about with second place, right? With Renji, he's like, he's the second one after Byakuya, but he's ultimately like, the gap is so large that he's not seeing himself and what he's accomplished, and how that's
he's not seeing himself as one among the greats and being a great himself. He's seeing as like, oh, look at how far the gap is for me to be number one, or me to be on the level of, the numero uno. So people like Byakuya, so it's cool, and especially given that for him it's less so about simply being stronger and more so about feeling at a comfortable level to actually talk to Rukia eye to eye again. That's what it's all been all about for Renji. He feels like until he does that, he can't look straight at Rukia as an equal. Even though that's never, obviously been the case. Ruki has never seen it that way, is what I'm saying. But yeah.
Before we get into Ichigo versus Byakuya, I wanted to. This is more of a. I have two things I just want to bring up as like I don't know the answer to this, so I'm hoping someone in the comments will have something to say. Is one I noticed that because they comment on how Ukitake and Kyoraku Shunsui have twin bladed Zanpakuto, where their sword when they activate Shikai it splits into two, and I think they comment on how unique that is relative to those two, and they have this very specific relation with Yamamoto. And then I remembered, wait, hold on, there's another character that has a twin blade Zanpakuto. Ichigo, way later, his sword splits into two when he gets his true Shikai in the 1,000-Year Blood War. I don't now if that's meaningful. That's what I want to know. But right now,
I mean, at the very least, just thinking about their roles. I mean, Shunsui literally becomes the next First Division captain, and then. Ukitake, I don't remember exactly. Doesn't he essentially
he sacrifices
replace the
himself? Basically, oh fuck yeah, he does sacrifice himself. I don't know if he replaces Soul King, but it's. I'd need to reread it.
I honestly,
I mentioned it. It has.
I'm thinking but it's probably not.
I remember it has to do with the right hand. Where I was talking about it because Kurasuchi fights the left hand. But I don't remember the full details because it is kind of like I feel like they just kind of it just happens and it it's not a big fight or anything, so it's just like a one chapter thing that is the climax of Ukitake's character arc. And I like him, but he's definitely not one of my favorites. Like, he doesn't have a huge presence in the series, right? So it makes sense why I'm not saying it's right, but it makes sense why it doesn't stick in my memory, his stuff in the 1,000-Year Blood War as much. But okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing was also Izuru, the guy with the his sword is the one that when he attacks people it increases their weight, and he has the hair covering one of his eyes, and his sword is bent at 290-degree angles. Because I just don't. I feel like I'm missing something with his character because I feel like he gets quite a bit of at least in this arc, he gets quite a bit of screen time. And I just I guess I don't really grasp his character in a way, or I haven't really focused on it. And maybe if no one has anything, I'll just go through the manga and reread every scene with him and see if I can't figure him out. But
on this very surface level, I think he's a perfect depiction of the Soul Reaper problem.
Okay.
Other than Momo, I guess, because even Izuru was in a position where he wasn't right next to Aizen. He was right next to one of his confidants, but
yes,
he wasn't in a position where he was getting directly mind fucked by Aizen's, by Aizen's I don't want to call him hot, but whatever. Anyway, Aizen's Riz. He wasn't being captivated by it. Okay. Yet he still so easily plays at their tempo.
Gotcha.
Okay. Even when it came to facing, look at how easily he got riled up against Momo, right? When Momo started attacking, he was like, if you attack my captain, I'm gonna fight you, rather than sit here and say hey, something's wrong right now. I know Momo wouldn't react like this. He completely subscribed to his role and his status and saw nothing past that. He even looked immediately past his pain, because he was obviously in immense pain by even uttering those words of of battle readiness to fight Momo. Yet again, his position as lieutenant superseded it all. When if he had rested and if he had looked at his emotions a little bit more and kind of evaluated the situation rather than immediately subscribing to his status, he could have seen something in that moment and been questioning things.
Yeah, that's true.
Sort of in the same way Toshiro even questions, but again, his questions are going in the wrong direction at the end of the day. Even when people do start questioning, it's always in the wrong direction, generally. But I guess that's again very surface level. It's because I admittedly haven't thought much about Izuru either, but in a sense, you can see is the perfect depiction.
Because you're definitely right, but yeah, I'm curious as to what's specifically, because one thing Radman pointed out was how Aizen sort of keeps tabs on people he finds interesting, and one of the ways he does that is because he was watching Momo and Renji and Izuru and Hisagi, and he put them on under like Izuru's under Gin. I think Renji was under Aizen, but then he got swapped. Moved to Byakuya's group.
Aizen praises Renji the most. He's like, you had the least capacity to be manipulated, so I got rid of you.
And then Hisagi worked for Tosen, so it's like, so he was keeping an eye on Izuru, but like, I feel like the character hasn't stuck enough in my brain to take more than that, but I'd definitely be curious as to like, because I don't know, I feel like, like with the Shikai symbolism and the names and stuff, like you could just pick a character and just go into them and just like, here's what this thing symbolizes.
Even the weight part, the only thing, it's like very surface level. It's like he's making everything more heavy, but in reality, in these moments, like his mind is the most weighed down because of what he's doing.
That doesn't sound surface level to me, but that's how you perceive yourself, I guess. So
it's. You
have a very high bar for surface level. I'm just gonna say.
I don't know. But I mean, it's just symbolism. It's just like, while he's weighing down everything, in actuality, in all of these moments in Soul Society, he is essentially the most weighed down by his status.
You're right.
And by subscribing to his status. Yeah.
I just think it's funny the way you frame it, because like
honestly, maybe I'm feeling a little bit I don't know, uncomfortable, because like when I look at these comments and even a lot of your observations,
gotcha.
I feel a little bit I feel a little bit inadequate, okay? A little bit inadequate, because like I was reading these comments like, these motherfuckers have thought way more about Bleach than me, so I feel like I need to up my game a little bit.
Yeah, but because, well, like, I guess, see, that's the thing, is because like the whole thing with Bleach is like, I'm sitting on a really interesting point that I'm waiting to bring out related to Arrancar and Aizen, and so I feel like there's something in my pocket that like I like to think that maybe no one else has thought about, hopefully, but then but you haven't gotten that yet, right? So I guess I see where you're coming from, but then like but I think my logic is like,
motherfucker, stop thinking about Bleach, please, for me.
Because my logic is also just like, where I'm coming from is because like, I don't know, I've been, even when I was reading Bleach, like part of the reason I got so fascinated by it, even if like I think I gave it a 7 for a personal rating, because I do personal number ratings out of 10, because it's just like I thought it was neat, but there was so many other analyses and takes and interesting things people were bringing up about it at the time, and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot going on here, and I just continue to love it more and more the more I go into it. So I kind of I like, maybe I'm just more used to other people bringing up really interesting stuff relative to you, where maybe you haven't found as much, or at least as commonly. Like, I don't know, do you get a lot of comments like this in your videos, where people are just bringing in these really spicy and interesting observations?
Very rare, but however,
okay.
We've mentioned AJ before, and I know he's going to be live reacting to Bleach soon. So I'll probably, by watching that here and there, I'll probably get even more comments like this. But I was surprised at there was a lot of really cool observations in his streams on Naruto that I had never seen in my comments before. I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot of other people out there, more than I gave the community credit for, that think about it as deeply as I do, sometimes if not more. And with Bleach, I feel like that's, this side of the community, it's amplified to an extent where I feel almost like I should not be the one talking about Bleach in this podcast, almost. Not to say that, because I genuinely do feel like Radman, for instance, would have like a lot cooler shit to say about it than me. But we even talked about it, and he did mention the fact that, like, well, you haven't, read Bleach as much as me, and hearing it from your perspective of someone going back into it, and maybe just appreciating it more, is already in of itself like a treat to listen to. I was like, okay, well, if that has some merit, fine. That's okay.
Yeah. Two things I wanted to say to that is like, is that one, like, a lot of the comments are like, because they're listening to us speak, and they're either saying things that maybe they thought about before, but they could also be saying things that they didn't think about until we brought it up, and then they're like kind of like what like we do here, right? Like, we've done it a couple times where like you say something and I go like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Let me add on to that. Like, that's part of the reason I wanted to discussion. But the other thing is, like, we have to, like, I guess like this podcast is also for a much smaller audience, but like relatively speaking, like if you step back and think of like the whole anime community, what you just said about Izuru is not a fucking surface level take, okay?
I guess,
you're
yeah.
just the fact that you're thinking about symbolism at all is treating Bleach seriously. That's just not how people respond to like that. And I'm not. I'm
But
not
at
trying
the
to
same
look down
time,
on
I feel
the
like that's a
average
really
person.
low. For me, that's like a really low bar.
That's why I said that your idea of surface level, like you're kind of like cause, so I'm just, but like there are going to be people listening who maybe like just hadn't just click that together in that way, and it's like because I honestly I hadn't thought about it in the way of like, oh wait, is the one who's more weighed down than the because I didn't come to that, so it's like I didn't think about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So,
don't know. Yeah, because I mean, especially when you look at Rangiku, right? Like, she should at least be in her predicament with Gin. But even when you look at the way they are, the way they're acting, how Izuru, every time you see him, he seems so uneasy in comparison to Rangiku. And, who ends up winning out? Rangiku does. Izuru doesn't. Izuru is the one that gets KO'd. And he seemed to have the edge the entire time. And again, it goes back to that mindset trumps all in battle. So it's like, if he's in actuality the most weighed down mentally, of course he's going to lose the fight. And again, we're not comparing apples to oranges here, because Rangiku, and at least similarly, should be mentally pretty strained too, given that like essentially the love of her life is like betraying the Soul Society right now, or at least it seems to be the case. It later is confirmed, but yeah, so it's cool to think about it that way. But I just say it's cool to think about it that way, not like it's like, whoa, holy shit, like, oh my god, HotBoySpicy, that is crazy, I've never thought about it. It's nothing like that, but it's cool, I guess, to think about it like that. Yeah. Anywho, moving on to.
Well, I was
or
going to
unless
say,
you
speaking
have
of,
more
I
to say about.
more generally speaking, I really like Gin and Rangiku's like relationship, like knowing what their deal is and how well, that's kind of one thing. I don't remember if I brought it up specifically regarding like the toxic masculinity thing, but there's just a recurring thing of like women being burdened by like men just doing things, and it maybe even for the better, like in some ways that like better for themselves, or like because like Gin's whole thing is he just saw Rangiku have a bit of her soul taken away by Aizen for the Hogyoku, and he just completely took it upon himself to dedicate his entire life and death to trying to like rescue her, in a sense, save her. But he didn't like think about her feelings or how she might feel about it at all. Even as they were like they were friends, they were comrades. They were if not just like had a affection for each other in some way, right? So just like he sort of took all that onto himself without even thinking about her at all, and then But I do like seeing the build up to that of seeing, because like Gin apologizing to her, and like we see his like eyebrows sort of slope down, and he's like looking more somber and less like a cocky asshole than he ever has. Like we're seeing a bit of his true self, in a sense, like the self that even Aizen does not understand, right?
Yeah,
like even if he knows that Gin has a blade at his back, he doesn't understand why.
And by the way, I actually remember how I first felt about that scene with Gin and Rangiku, the one where he's about to fly away with Aizen.
First felt as in like way back when you watched it, or first felt like when you last read the manga?
Literally, well, I guess because when I first watched it way back when, I was like, I don't really remember how I felt, and also
yeah,
I was
that makes sense.
I was
right?
a really stupid kid too, so I don't think my perspective.
Sasuke's a bad
much.
character level stupid, right?
Oh, actually, when I was a kid, I never thought Sasuke was a bad character. Actually, believe it or not, I thought Naruto and Sasuke were phenomenal characters. Then when I became a teenager, I was like, they are lacking on a lot of bases. They're like, it makes no sense when Naruto does this. It makes no sense when Sasuke does this. And then like, I got a little bit older, and then I went back to my enlightened. Ironically, my enlightened perspective was me thinking they were both perfect when I was a kid. That was like actually true.
Right.
So I ended up going back to my roots in actuality. But anyway, when I first read it years and years and years later, when I watched after I had already watched it. When the line McGinn says, he's like, I would have liked you to be your prisoner a little bit longer. It's a shame. In those words, I saw his usual like playful, sort of sadistic self. But then the preceding words right after, I'm sorry. I still remember to this day how I felt when I was like, oh, all these words are genuine. That I'm sorry has weight. Like it is not, it's not a facade. That I'm sorry is a genuine I'm sorry. Like he actually would have would have loved. He would have loved to be with her this entire time. And it's like it really. I've said this. I think when I first read Bleach, I love their dynamic, and also I love the motif. You see this a lot in shonen. I love the motif of characters trying to be hyper selfless, but in effect, it kind of manifests as like this selfish
Yes.
like an isolation path that sort of ends up hurting everyone else rather than helping anything. And when in actuality, had they just been upfront and honest from the get go, things probably would have turned out a lot better. You see this with other shonen. You see this with like Robin in One Piece, Sanji in One Piece. You see this.
I
with,
thought you were going to
like,
mention Sanji first, but yeah.
Yeah, you see this.
For
You
sure.
see this with Itachi and Naruto. I love this. I love. I guess this trope. I don't even know what you would call the trope, but I love it so much, and how like.
I personally call the trope like half-hearted kindness, which is what I titled my Sanji video, because like that's how fuck, oh wow, holy shit, did I just forget her? Reiju, Reiji, she forget, that's how she frames it, because like, or with the anyway, just like because yeah, Sanji's being kind, or Gin's being like, what is Gin if not being kind, right? He's literally trying to save Rangiku's broken soul in a sense, right? But like, it's half-hearted because it's not really done out of understanding for Rangiku's feelings, right? Like because he's not being honest, because it is selfish. You're right. He is ultimately caring about himself and the esteem and esteem he would get for saving her, this person he cares about, basically, right? So yeah.
It's really cool because I think it's just fundamentally true. Like honesty first and foremost about your intentions, about what you see, about your qualms, and about especially your pain, what you're suffering through. That's like, I think the first gateway to like true resolution. And I think this can especially be applied to life. It can especially be applied to like the whole idea of, I mean, we've been talking about masculinity in the realm of toxic masculinity. I know a big talking point with a lot of people is how men tend to swallow a lot of their pain and not discuss it because they feel like no one cares enough, or
when they do talk about it, they joke about it, right? Like, haha, I want to kill myself, right?
Yeah,
like,
they add levity
which
to
is
it all. Yeah, which
exactly
is literally, by the way, something I do constantly.
I'm not saying I don't.
I am guilty of this myself. Where I'll always be like, suicide time, guys, gotta kill my lol. It's like, well, it happens.
Well, I was going to say, because I was thinking of the scene where, because Gin goes up to Ruki and he points out, he's talking about how, Ichigo is like, he's basically, it kind of reeks of like, driving a knife in the wound, so to speak, because it's like, oh yeah, Ichigo and Renji like are still alive and they're probably trying to help you and they might die doing it, haha. The way he's like tormenting her over it. But like obviously the manga focuses on like Rukia's emotions and like because like she's about to get executed and she's like, oh fuck, I thought I had given up hope, but no, I hadn't. But I was also thinking about just the contrast of like Gini's trying to save Rangiku and Ichigo is trying to save Rukia, and Renji is also trying to save Rukia. So by like talking to Rukia about this specific subject, there's a way he's like, I don't know, I just was thinking about the contrast there of like he's seeing Rukia care about Ichigo, he's sort of like maybe imagining Rangiku caring about Gin saving her, basically, in a sense.
That's really cool way to look at it. Yeah.
Because, which is again, it's a way that he's sort of building up his own esteem about the justness and the nobility of what he's doing against Rangiku's wishes. When it's like, well, Rangiku and Rukia are different people in different situations; they're not equitable, right? I mean, maybe there's another reason he's doing it, like because I'm not sure what that like because he's building himself up as a villain in a sense, like the same reason he had that conversation with Aizen to be. He's a red herring who's also on Aizen's side anyway. So but like what does fucking with Rukia before execution accomplish to their plan? I don't know. So that's just one thing I thought about in regards to like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because it's interesting because I had thought about it too, and I thought. My interpretation was also that, or I don't know if yours was essentially that, like he's trying to help her in a sense, but I kind of thought that, like,
Yeah, no, I
he
did
was
have
kind of
that
doing.
thought of like, yes,
Okay,
because
yeah,
he's revealing Rukia's true feelings, but
yes,
through the
yeah,
guise of tormenting her.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I didn't think about the Rangiku stuff until we were talking about those two just now. So
Well, yeah, which is ironic because he's not, he's with Rangiku. He's not being honest with his, true feelings and
yeah,
true intentions. So it's very funny. Yeah, very cool. Oh, and I guess that's what you were getting to in terms of like through seeing Ichigo. It's his way of not directly confronting Rangiku in the situation, and it's his way to kind of vent it out to someone else and giving someone else the chance to be honest with themselves. Yeah, you could really see it as like selflessness born out of like his selfish path. He
yeah.
spreads a little bit of selflessness out to Rukia. That's a really cool way to look at it, huh? Yeah, that's cool. Wow, Gin goated.
Yeah. So let's see what else. Oh yeah, we can finally get to Ichigo versus
by the
Giga.
way, I cannot believe this
fine.
is irrelevant to everything we just going back to the suicide thing earlier. I cannot believe I didn't. I don't know how I didn't think about this card until immediately after we had already segued into talking more about Gin. But I don't know why I didn't just use the bleach. I'm gonna drink bleach. Like, haha, everyone's like, yeah, hey guys, I'm gonna go drink bleach. Haha, joking about that because that's literally a huge meme. We're reading Bleach. I don't know why it came in my mind after we had already segued from it. I was like, God damn, why didn't I use that? Like, that would have been a perfect card to use in that situation.
I actually have a really dumb drinking bleach joke relevant to Bleach, where it's like basically I was pointing out how like because so I literally read like 10 volumes in a day, I think, because after we discussed on the Nen show, I finished Bleach like the next day, and I did the last reading and finished like 10 or 12 volumes in one day because it's such a fast read that the only reason it's slow for me is because I'm trying to drink it all in and take notes. But like Kubo's art there's such a good flow to it, right? Like it's like a drinkable manga.
True.
Which is just this really dumb way to think of like, wait,
bleach,
the one
boils.
manga you don't want to say is drinkable, that is, because it's not the only manga that is just really quick to read, but just because of like the way it's just paced and format, like because in comparison, like One Piece can be very wordy, so it's not necessarily like quick to read in that same way.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a dumb joke that I thought about a while ago. So
it's very I mean, my natural state is like really, really probably rushing through, which is not good. And the notes, now that I've actually started taking notes as of this episode, I'm glad because it has slowed down my pace to the point where I'm really sinking in more panels than I ever have before, which is good. I'm especially appreciating Kubo's cinematic presentation even more than I had before. It's not like it hadn't been on my mind before, but his presentation that's the only way I can describe it. It's so I literally like I was live streaming this past weekend, and I got I got goaded into reading a few chapters of Bleach live.
I did.
Radman was also there. Radman was also there,
yes.
and I
Gotcha.
was like, okay, I'll read a couple chapters because I had to go somewhere after that. I read like 3 chapters, and that was one of the things I was talking about. I was like, guys, like look at the way, look at it, like boom, you see a close up shot here, you see like feet, and you see a clash here, and then title screen in black, and it's like this is so cinematic. And I feel like most chapters in Bleach are like this. It's like it's a super cinematic experience, but it's in manga. It's just so it's so unique. I've never seen anyone do it like Kubo. I really have never seen anyone else play with the media in this fashion to make it feel
really
almost
love the
movie-like.
way he uses the title pages and like because they'll always have them at a different point in each chapter. I feel like a few pages in, sometimes at the start. There's one in Thousand Year Blood War where it's literally at the very end of the chapter where he has the title drop. It's so fucking cool every time, and the title pages themselves, like he does some really cool stylistic ones. Sometimes they're just characters in cool fashion, or but they're always a treat. I don't know, it's like it's just so good. We can never, we don't talk about it, Bleach's art enough, or Kubo's art, but you never can, in all honesty. It's really fucking good.
TLDR, it's really great, guys. Read Bleach. Well, you're reading Bleach if you're watching this, but
I hope so. If you just put it on for background noise, and it's
reread it, guys. Yeah. Alrighty.
Real quick, I want to. I want to point out something real quick because you might have noticed it because again we're big One Piece fans, but there's because when Yamamoto goes to fight Kyoraku and Ukitake, he basically knocks out Nanao with Conqueror's Haki, right?
True.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they do explain because like he has his spiritual pressure, his aura. But I just want to point out something that's more general. In that, because it's easy to forget that, like, because hockey, we talk about it like it's this sort of like it's this one thing in One Piece, right? Well, it's also just a word that refers to like a kind of a concept that just exists in Japanese culture beyond just like just the fact that ki, energy, spirit, like haki, right? It's the root word there is ki or energy, like soul, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like. I've literally seen like there was another show I watched, Faraway Paladin, where he literally like scared away an animal through just his like presence, and I was like, oh, Conqueror's Haki, basically, right? And it's just like because it's not unique. One Piece just like literalizes it to an extreme degree, but it's not it's not it's just I feel like it's so easy for us as English speakers to like almost like mythologicize like certain Japanese terms and words when in Japan they're just things. I guess so. I just wanted to point that out because I was just scrolling by and I noticed it because it's very much like it's
because like the only Western thing that comes to my mind immediately when I think of something equivalent to like weighty spiritual pressure or reiatsu, I think is the Japanese word for it, or like hockey. Is there's this I don't know if you've seen or the viewers that matter as well have seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies, but
I hope so. They're phenomenal.
Yeah, they're great. Admittedly, I hadn't seen them until the last couple of years. I had a roommate that was like, "Bro, you have not watched?" And we went on.
Oh my
god,
watched that's getting to watch them for the first time. That's awesome. Anyway, go ahead.
It was a cool experience. But in the first movie, there's a particular scene where it's Gandalf, right? He's walking up to it's in one of the
Saruman.
No, it's in one of the initial scenes where they're still in the Shire.
Oh, okay.
Why can't I think of the small guy that's initially got the ring?
Frodo? No, Bilbo.
Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo Baggins. He's like not wanting to give up the ring. He's like, and then Gandalf's like, Frodo, and then it's like, and then everything goes dark, and it's like his fucking overwhelming presence. Like, and when I first watched it, I literally audibly was like telling my friend, I was like, bro, this is so anime. I was like, bro, this is like One Piece, bro, with hockey. Like, holy shit. No, it's cool.
Awesome.
It's cool.
Awesome. I know the scene you're talking about where he's trying to intimidate him into dropping the ring with just his presence, right? Like, but like even like the environment changes, like everything gets darker and it starts kind of rumbling. It's actually like a really fucking cool scene, the way they present it. Well, to explain how I had the concept of hockey explained to me is like, imagine you're in a grocery store and you see a wrestler, right? And he's just like pushing a shopping cart. He probably doesn't have that much presence, but once he's on stage and he's like looking intimidating and his presence changed, right? His hockey turns on in a sense. Like he goes from oh, that's just the guy to I suddenly don't want to fuck with him, right? Like that's the concept of what hockey is.
Oh my god, dude, Aizen, this is Aizen 101.
Oh,
glasses,
right.
Keeping his hair down. What does he do immediately when the facade is gone? He shatters the glasses. He doesn't just take them off and like discard them. He shatters them. He shatters the facade, puts his hair back up. Now he's got the presence that's equivocal to his true goal and who he truly is. He lets his hockey bloom, right? He was, and I guess that's like also another common trope is like concealing presence, right? You see that even.
True. It also ties to like a Saki or maybe it's Satsuki, but killing intent is another one you've probably seen a lot. Which
like
again
Hunter
has
Hunter, for instance.
Yes,
right, with his
same root word of ki, right? Like, exactly.
Cool.
But no, that's a good connect. I didn't think about connecting to Bleach. I just saw it and I was like, I just want to bring this up because like I've seen people try to make the argument that like, oh, hockey wasn't introduced in, people just being dumb about the way hockey was introduced to One Piece, where it's like it's a thing and there's just the culture beyond One Piece, guys. Like, hello.
Actually, One Piece is One Piece the best. It is, guys. I'm sorry, Bleach fans. I'm sorry, One Piece is the best.
I mean, I've only been liked it for 18 plus years. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm
Bleach
talking to
too,
the audience,
but
not you. I know you're a fellow One Piece fan.
Well, I'm kind of like arguing to the audience is like, look, nothing's gonna top 18 years of love, right? And it's like,
True.
well, what if you like for Bleach for 18 years? Yeah, but then I'll like One Piece for like 30 years. Give me a break.
Exactly.
So like, I can't help it.
I will say though, if Hueco Mundo is a lot better than I remember it being, Bleach might be. It might just be the big three in my top three, and that would be honestly.
Dude, look,
very based.
you know the one me. I think it was the one in white who made it, but you know the meme with the astronaut where it's like they're looking at the Earth and then they say like I forget what they say, or maybe it was the moon and they say like, oh my god, it was like this the whole time, and then there's the astronaut with another astronaut with a gun behind him and they say it always was. It's like the big three were always good, and they always were. And it's like because it's like the big three are just so transcendental to me because I think maybe it's just something about that time period in Jump too, because it also had Hunter x Hunter. I didn't love Shaman King, but it was actually interesting in a lot of the same ways I think is interesting about those other stories. And it's just, but I just think about like One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach are just so fucking interesting. They're all like really long. Like you don't really get super long shonen manga anymore. Like something about, and Gintama is also interesting in its own ways too, and it's also really long, also coming from that time period. It's just like, but the big three in particular for me, I just really love those stories, and just think about how much they have going on and how interesting they are and how like they were majorly culturally relevant, and it's just like the big three.
Dude, I don't mean to because I know like literally we talk about Roundman a lot and it's hard not to because he's kind of a Bleach YouTuber first and I don't even know if I'd say first and foremost, but he loves Bleach, okay. And I know he loves JJK, but like, because when I think of like what are the top shonen people are talking about now, for me anyway, okay, I really got deep into JJK, and I even tweeted about this. I'm like, going back to Bleach after like reading like what is presumably the last final arc in JJK, I got pretty deep into it, but it's like for me it's like a night and day experience. I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia lenses. Maybe I see more in Bleach than I see in JJ, and maybe I'm not giving JJK a fair enough shake. But like, it's literally the difference between being like consistently like I'm trying to get to the better stuff, and then like always being engaged with Bleach. Like if this is like if this like little inconsequential comedy scene is like the worst of what I'm going to get in this volume, then like holy shit, this volume is going to be another amazing volume because I'm already engaged as fuck, and that just never has happened consistently. Like, JJK is like one of the most popular or the most popular new gen.
I think at this moment it's incredibly it's probably I don't know if it's at the peak of its popularity, but it feels hard to go anywhere without while also avoiding Jesus Kaisen hype and discussion.
I'm pretty sure at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even in sales, it's been surpassing One Piece pretty consistently the last few years, right?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know about.
I'm pretty sure it's been like number one consistently. I might be completely wrong.
Because obviously Kimetsu no Yaiba is also really popular, and I think it's really good as well. Like I like both Jujutsu Kaisen and Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Oh really? Maybe yeah.
But,
oh god, because that's another one I don't like. I do, but I don't think I gave Demon Slayer a very fair shake. I watched 2 episodes and I was like, I don't think this is for me.
Okay. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll talk about it one day on this very podcast.
This podcast.
Because I do want to reread it myself because I want to make a video and then time it to release when the anime finishes. Yeah. That's
Just to say, I'm just saying I don't know. I can't say for sure whether it's just because now that I'm re-experiencing these stories so much, like I've re-experienced One Piece so many times in different forms, whether it be live reactions or just rereading it myself, and Naruto too, and now Bleach. Maybe it's because I've reconsumed them now a couple of times. I can see more in it, or maybe it's just because I genuinely like these type of stories more. And what constitutes these types of stories, and how do they relate to each other? I don't fucking know. I just I just seem to, I seem.
Or go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I seem to, because it really was, I felt so, it was such a stark contrast that I felt compelled to tweet about it. Because the day before that, I was doing my last, before I dropped it, I was doing my last live reaction to JJK. And I was like, oh man, like, there was one chapter of the dispatch that I was like kind of feeling, and it wasn't even that like exhilarating. Immediately the next day I'm reading Bleach, and I'm just completely enthralled the entire way through. There's not one point where I'm not enthralled. And I was like, man, this is like just a completely different reading experience altogether. So, yeah.
I mean, I will say one thing it is for me is that like I just like. I mean, obviously, I won't like every single one, but I have a tendency to like long form stories because I think there's things you can only do in a long form story.
Yes.
That I really
yes,
not even
yeah,
just
exactly.
manga, but the biggest Western example I can think of is I'm an MCU fan. If you didn't know, I actually. I quite like. I obviously like. There's quite a few, especially there's been a number of like things I find are mid, but I think especially like the first three phases, like up to basically like Endgame and Far From Home, is like it's so good. The Marvel movies do a lot of the things I like in like long running shonen manga, where you have like all these different characters. They have all these their own things going on, and they have their own different ideological conflicts that they explore in their own movies. But then they also tie into the larger movie crossover movies in their own ways. And it's just like I just really like those aspects that even a manga like yeah, even if I do like Jujutsu Kaisen and Kimetsu no Yaiba, at the end of the day, they're like they're probably not going to hit 30 volumes, right? So it's like there's only so much they can do in that time frame.
Not long enough, buckos.
They have elements that match the long running stories. Like they still have their fairly large size cast of characters, but I'm pretty sure the fucking Arrancar stuff is like longer than both of those manga, right? And that's just one part of Bleach, so it's like there's just fundamentally, if I enjoy this aspect of having these long running stories, then obviously, I do enjoy a lot of manga that are shorter, but there's just something that hits different about, like fucking seeing Silver Rayleigh for the first time in the volume 3 and then getting introduced to him in volume 52 and being like, oh, it's that guy from 10 years of serialization ago. Just neuron activation, man. It's just, there's something about it. It's really cool.
And not to spoil anything, I'm only going to say it's literally we get that in the new One Piece chapter, and that I haven't even.
Oh my fucking god!
But I got spoiled, so that's the
1106 for anyone who wants to, because this. Oh no, actually, I think that'll still be the most recent chapter when this episode comes out. But just still.
Yeah. I will say.
Anyway,
guys,
we should get back to Bleach, but if you want to finish.
So basically, what Crafts is saying, guys, is the reason why he still likes One Piece more is because One Piece is longer than Bleach. There you go.
There we go. I think. Oh my god, you're right. So basically, it's
longer equals better.
No shit. Actually, Evo is my favorite manga now. It's 130 volumes long. It's longer than One Piece. I have to like it more. I'm sorry.
It's over. It's over. One Piece is dethroned. Oh my god,
Evo is really good though. Evo is really good. Just saying, it's not my favorite, but it's still really good.
I don't think Trap will ever listen to this, but there's a guy in my community, and he's one of my good friends. He's like anytime I talk to him, it's like read Epo Hot Boy, read Epo Hot Boy, read Epo Hot Boy, please read Epo. You need to read Epo. I never do. I never do.
Okay, it's really good. But anyway, back to Bleach. So I don't know if I have that much to say about the Yamamoto versus Kyoraku and Ukitake. Avoiding Ichigo versus Bayaka again, because there's another fight I talked to talk. I realized there's another fight we haven't talked about, but I do think because like just the inherent contradiction where because like he's sort of like he refers to them by their given names, not their surnames. Like he's still treating them like children in a way. Is how I read that, and just the way he talks like. Because he's talking about that, like they frame it as personal justice versus the world's justice, and he's saying that the world's justice matter. And when they ask him what the world's justice is, he just says everything response. Turns to ashes, which is like, yeah, Soul Society will one day turn to ashes. Like he himself overturned the previous rule, and he's been ruling for 1,000 years basically. Maybe not that long, but a substantial length of time, right? So he himself should understand the inherent result that change will happen and that nothing lasts forever, but yet here he is framing his own rule as absolute, as something that will never go away. And even in his words to them, as they're in embracing those ideals better than he ever will, so or has in recent memory, rather, not ever will. But yeah, it's I
mean that same dynamic is played up. It's pretty strongly paralleled with Ichigo's dialogue with Byakuya too.
Yes, absolutely.
Where he's talking about justice, and Ichigo's like, what is this justice you speak of? And Byakuya's like, enough talk, we battle. Yamamoto says the same thing when they're talking about justice. He's like, enough, we fight now, no more time for words. So it's pretty clear, parallel there about how like justice is in this sense. It's become such a systematic thing that now no one can even qualify the justice. It just is the system. But like what is the system? It's just an operational vehicle. Like, can we not distinguish right and wrong in this system? If we can no longer distinguish right and wrong, then is this justice at all? So it's it's this whole idea of like, systematic, dogmatic thinking can, ruin, completely ruin lives and completely ruin a society, the soul society. Yeah. Oh my god! Oh my god! This is society, guys. Anyway, yeah. So what you had another fight before the Byakuya and Ichigo?
No,
fight?
that was the one.
Okay.
So I think now we're into Byakuya versus Ichigo, so we can finally talk about it.
Yeah, and maybe is there something more to say about? Because I feel like that confrontation is like really substantial, but like not a lot. We don't see a lot of it, but.
I mean, kind of going back to what you were saying about their importance, that's still true, and like the fact that they are they're the strongest characters, or at least some of the most because they've been with Yamamoto the longest, they seem to be the ones with the closest relationship to him, and that they're the how do I put this? It's really funny because I know you're like a One Piece and Naruto guy, so I can just like explain things in terms of One Piece and Naruto and be like, oh, I get it, right? Like, they're the subordinates to Yamamoto in the same way that Minato is Jiraiya's pupil, right? So even though they're older now and they have their their own pupils, basically,
I think
Kaien and Rukia.
I think more than that though. Because I think something that was exposited in this section. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might just be making this shit up. I hope I'm not. I remember Yamamoto because I remember being surprised. Unless this happened in a fucking dream. Yamamoto says, when I created the 13 court guards, did Yamamoto did he create that system of the 13
Yes,
squads?
That happened because we see that in the flashback in Thousand Year Blood War, because that's also I remember there's like a panel of him, a younger him with Unohana as well. She was also part because they show that panel again when they explain how she was the Kenpachi of the time, he created Soul Society as it is basically, and which is he's protecting his peace, he's protecting his world basically.
Okay, I'm glad I'm saying that because to him, if these guys were like the young bucks that he saw the most promise in, to see them going directly against this system that he cultivated, you could see that as for him it's such a sad thing, given that he probably always saw them as like the ultimate inheritors. Like together they would inherit, after he passed on, they would inherit his position, which one of them does essentially do, it ends up doing, and even the other one that doesn't inherits, part of the system in a different way.
Exactly. Yes.
And I guess you can really look at that for Yamamoto as like really somber, because it's like, man, I really was hoping you guys would, inherit what I built rather than fighting against it. But of course, all of it is a facade anyway, because Aizen's epic.
God, we'll talk about Aizen. Tell you what,
real soon.
Yes. But yeah, how much did you get out of Ichigo versus Byakuya?
Let me. Did I have many notes for Ichigo and Byakuya? I get this one. This is not. Is this really the only note I have for it? Yeah, this is like nothing. Anyway, Black Moon Rising is the title of the volume where like Ichigo goes Bankai, and there's like always panels of like Ichigo on the left, Byakuya on the right, and it's like white and black, Black Moon Rising. And Byakuya is this white, he's like the white moon paired against, because the only thing that can, eclipse nothing can reach a white moon unless you're raising a celestial body of your own, right? And that's sort of Ichigo's, like Black Bankai is like he's contesting it with a similar force. Even when you look at like their techniques, they kind of mirror each other in a way, because Byakuya's sort of ultimate form makes him go way faster, right? It's like the ultimate attack mode. What is Ichigo's? Ichigo's whole Bankai is like predicated on speed. He becomes way more speedy, right? So again, like he's rising an equivocal moon of his own that's just like a different color to eclipse Byakuya's moon, like the moon that Renji could never reach because he could never manifest something that could contest a moon, right? Because he's always the dog, barking the moon. While he could grow bigger and bigger and get closer and closer to the moon, maybe even get his fangs to where he can maybe,
pierce the moon,
almost
right?
taste them, pierce them. He could never eclipse it. More symbolism for me, right? That's what I'm just a symbolism guy.
You hate poetry, but you love
cool.
poetic things. So not hate poetry, but you know what I mean.
I looking at it that way, and especially how the panels are laid out, where it's like when their blades are like clashing. There's always panels specifically their blade. Byakuya's white, Ichigo's black, and when you relate it to Black Moon Rising, it's like, oh, their moons are colliding. Finally, we have an equivocal moon. Ichigo's manifested an equivocal moon that can contest this. And I guess you could extend it to their ideology, and they're because Byakuya says himself at the end of the fight, I was never your enemy. In actuality, what Ichigo is weaponizing is his ideology of change, whereas Byakuya is sitting at the forefront of that stagnation in the Soul Society. And even cooler is when you relate it to Aizen, because it's like Byakuya, in all intents and purposes, is played up as the final obstacle in this arc. And we see him as the final blockade before we get to Rukia, whereas in actuality, Byakuya was never Ichigo's enemy. The true enemy of everyone all along is Aizen, but he's always been in the shadows. How you want to, I don't know how I'd relate that symbolically, but I would say that's kind of a cool way of looking at it, relating it to that final message of or Byakuya's realization rather.
Well, I think here's a way you can link it symbolically, because I was thinking about how, like, because Byakuya is the full moon. It's something that, like, it appears perfect and clear. That's part of the symbolism, and but it's ultimately something that will eventually, like, it'll start to wane. And but a new moon is something that, like, it's there's also a pureness to it. Like a black moon is a new moon, right, where there's no sun, there's no light shining on it, basically. I was just thinking about how, like, but it will eventually.
Fuck! I wish I thought of that. Yeah, that's true.
It will start it starts to wax and become full, basically, as Ichigo learns and has room to grow. Yeah. But Aizen he's the illusory moon, right? Like, so. Yeah,
because as soon as you said that, I immediately thought of that moon that we see all the time, and we even see it a lot in the beginning of Arankar. You see it a lot.
Oh god, I love the panel of, like, Grand Fisher, and you see the moon inside of his hole. I love that panel so much, because just the way it's so cool. But basically, because
it's crazy.
Because Byakuya even mentions how Renji is the monkey looking at the reflected moon. But he doesn't see him. He and all of Soul Society is monkeys. They're all being fooled by Aizen's reflection, and that's sort of the realization. Like, Ichigo pierces the moon. He defeats Byakuya. He pierces the moon as well. But it's all an illusion, because Aizen's the one controlling everything. Aizen's the real antagonist. They're all just monkeys playing around, right? Aizen's completely in control. So there's another.
And for Byakuya, it makes a lot of sense in the mentality again, right? Because again, his whole volition was predicated on fear first and foremost. He was doing this out of fear. Out of fear of that same mistake happening again, by going against his code, by going against his honor bound duty. His worst pain came about from not adhering to the rules and regulatory practices of his higher status, and so all of this is now a sort of haphazard declaration that is just born from fear, and nothing can be born from fear. Nothing truly can be born from fear, right? It's only through where courage is rooted that true change and true prosperity occurs, right? And that's literally one of the final messages of this entire series. So that Byakuya, we see it as early as here, is that, like, everything he's doing is predicated on fear, and how when there's at least someone that comes with a contestable force, how he shatters so easily. It's really cool to see that played up already, near the beginning of the story with Byakuya. And it's even cooler, by the way, when you relate it to his later conflict with the Sternritter, whose main thing is fear,
Yes.
is controlling people by fear, but in that second fight, he doesn't fight that guy. He lets Rukia do it, the very person that he's trying to consistently protect
Hmm.
after this ordeal, and even before the ordeal, because of the circumstance with his wife.
Yes.
Yet you see that really cool change in that he allows Rukia, to face that obstacle, and you see that progression, that he no longer harbors that fear that sort of
Hmm.
binded and controlled his actions. It's cool.
Yeah.
A
Um,
lot more obvious, but I remember I at one point, when I first read that chapter, when I was reading Bleach week to week, because I was actually reading it week to week in Thousand Year Blood War. Believe it or not, I actually disliked the Byakuya surviving
oh yeah,
that
that's
battle.
not uncommon either.
Yeah, I disliked it, and it wasn't because of the communities. When I watched it, I felt a little bit odd. I was like, oh, I feel like that was like a perfect death. Save the Soul Society, Ichigo. That's like perfect. But then when I actually went and read it way later, I was like, oh wait, this directly relates to the stuff in Soul Society. This is really cool that he's letting Rukia take on this obstacle, and he's here to to guide her through that, to guide her through that fear that he conquered so long ago. It's cool. It's just so you wouldn't have this moment if had he died.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
better for it.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, my stance, because I think people get a lot of, they don't really care for a lot of the times where, especially in long running shonen, where a character will die and then they'll kind of come back. Like Oda does it a lot. Fucking, it happens. It happens in fucking Hunter x Hunter. It happens in Naruto. I feel like
yeah.
just
I'm waiting
fakes
for Pound to
outs
get
and.
something enough to
I thought the
explain
cover
away
story.
this.
I think the cover story was good. Like it made me feel good. But well, that's what I was gonna get at. Is because like my personal take on it is like it's a it's like a combination of like how much did I care about the character death in the first place, and what do we get after the comeback that's overcomes like
Yeah,
that can overcome the character death. So for me, with Pound is like I did like his death scene, but I don't know, the wholesomeness of him getting to meet his family that Big Mom cut him away from. Like I really like that just in the cover story. So I ended up
yeah. I
coming
guess
around
I'm
to it
different because
personally.
I
Okay.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I thought it
Where
was like cute, but it wasn't anything cool enough to make me go, oh,
okay.
this is better if he had.
That's fair, but like
Yeah.
the flip side of it would be Pagaya, who in Skypiea, who it's like his death scene wasn't super emotional for me in the first place, and him coming back was kind of it was funny, like it was funnier than his
Oh, that
death
one!
was
Yeah, I
sad.
completely
So it's
agree with
like
that one.
yeah, it's
I love that. I
like
love that.
um
We're talking about you. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm alive.
what I'm still a bit, maybe hoping for something is Pell, because his death scene is so fucking good at the end of Alabasta, and he just kind of hasn't done
Listen,
anything since being
hell will
alive,
never.
you
It'll
know.
just never. It'll
And
never. I know there's that
I
like
don't think,
whole
I
9/11, the 9/11 theory. I'm pretty sure it's just a theory. I don't think it's ever been confirmed. But from my recollection, there's like a whole theory in that that came around the same time 9/11 happened, and Oda's editors were like, hey, this is kind of. Yeah, like there's still fresh in people's minds, foreign readers. We might want to like have Pell live because he kind of exploded himself. There's kind of a clock tower, kind of like twin towers. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I hear. If you literally look, secret about me is my literal YouTube banner is like a low key Pell 9/11 joke. That is
oh.
literally my YouTube banner.
Oh
It's
my
like that
god,
joke.
I have it in my head right now, and I'm just
Yeah.
it all makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't think that's ever been confirmed. I think that's just
Because I've heard
prevailing
about
theory.
it, because obviously I've been in the
Yeah,
community for a long time, but I didn't I'm seeing it now, and I'm just seeing the that's what yep, I'm seeing it in
yeah,
your banner. It's really funny.
that's pretty morbid, but that's yeah. A
Okay.
friend made it for me a while ago.
But yeah, I guess to go back to Bleach is like, it's, in your case, yeah, what you got out of Byakuya being alive was more valuable than the loss,
Exactly.
his death, basically.
Because
So,
while that death would have been great, the preceding stuff where he lives is even better, I think, because it feels more conclusive for his character arc at the end of the day,
mhm.
even more
Yeah,
so
yeah.
than than his dialogue to Ichigo. Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's the same thing. It's like how can that survival? What will they do? And how
Yes.
impactful will it be?
But anyway, two things I want to point out about the fight, because like, obviously there's the personal justice versus world's justice conflict that Ichigo
Yeah.
goes against the system. He's so that's the very it's clear, it's still really good, and but two other things I noticed were, one was there because Ichigo activates his Bankai and he puts his blade up to Byakuya's throat, and then Byakuya's like, well, why did you withdraw your blade? And I thought about what you bring up in your Aizen video about how Ichigo wants to fight more. He's not just ending the fight even though he theoretically could, because he's got this Bankai, he wants to test it out, he wants to do a bit more with it.
He has that hubris behind his blows.
Yes, and Byakuya even mentions that he thinks it's overconfidence. So I just something I didn't notice before, because
extending that a little bit more. It's funny that this is the first occurrence where we really see that hubris shine in that moment, and who comes out immediately after. The representation of that hubris at its most depraved, which is the hollow inside him.
Yes.
So that's cool.
And then there was another thought, that because there's the Byakuya says this is the only miracle you're going to get, and then Ichigo it's really cool when he says, if that was the only miracle, then what's this then, when he's getting the edge on Byakuya. But I was just thinking about how Byakuya he allowed himself one miracle in the sense of going against the system with Hisana and Rukia and breaking the rules, basically. So he initially kind of extended that to Ichigo. It's okay, you only get one.
You only get one. You only get
but
one.
But then Ichigo said, "Fuck you! I don't have to play by your rules."
That's
and
a really cool way to relate to Byakuya's flashback. I hadn't thought of that. That is cool.
Yeah, because Byakuya himself, he doesn't need to limit himself to one either. He just thought it was the right thing to do, and it wasn't, because he was breaking his promise to Hisana by letting Rukia die. I think Oscar even points out the Broken Coda chapter title in and how it looks like a silhouette of Rukia, but it actually it's probably a silhouette of Hisana, and it's actually a reference to the fact that Byakuya is breaking his promise by taking Rukia in. So Broken Coda. So I was like, oh, that's really neat.
That is very, very, very cool. Anything about let's see. Yeah, I didn't really have much on Ichigo and Byakuya. I talk about the fight in my rescue arc video, but I don't really remember what I say. That might be another reason I didn't, because I probably thought talk a lot there about it. I should have just gone back and rewatched some of the shit I said. I mean,
I see, because I have not gone back to watch my old videos because of the idea I suggested to you. But it would make sense to do it at some point for sure.
Because I do remember, at least in the quote, no personal justice takes precedence over the world's justice. I'm pretty sure Ukitake literally asked them what is the world's justice, and Yamamoto doesn't really have an answer. And I think it goes back to the whole systemic thing, and how the answer probably is justice is whatever the Council of 46 decides, but that's not really qualifying it to any tangible degree at all. Well, does that literally mean it's their way or the highway, even if their way seems to be even morally bankrupt, and just bizarre, and even if it goes against, because that is, I think the assumption there is what Yamamoto would say, but he doesn't say it, because even saying it sounds like, ooh, is that right? Is that really right? That justice is only contingent on what these guys say are the highway. We can't even think about it. We can't even question it, right? It goes back to Aizen's questioning everything. Is that because again, Yamamoto in that instance, I think the only answer there is well, whatever the Council 46 decides, because they're the law of Soul Society. I think it's really cool, that little subtext there, because if you fill in the blank, that's probably what Yamamoto would say. But the reason he doesn't, because even he's probably thinking well, shit, that's probably not a good thing if that we don't ever even think about the decisions they're making. And we see that come into fruition immediately after this confrontation with Aizen saying hey guys, I was the Council of 46. Yeah, so and you guys were blindly following it. So it's cool. It's cool.
And especially just I don't know, Yamamoto having this fatherly paternal pride where it's he can't admit that he's wrong. right? Where he has to, and so instead of like giving up and being like, you kids have a point, he has to just dig in his heels, even if he's fighting for something flawed.
Literally, literally, like you said earlier, in that he was kind of talking down to them like they were kids, saying that they essentially mocking their perspective or their lack of. In actuality, their perspective and questioning what's going on is actually to a substantially higher degree than where he's at. Because again, he lacks an answer entirely to their simple question of like, what is the world's justice? If no personal justice takes precedence over it, he can't even answer such a simple question. And yet he's talking down to them like they're children who lack perspective. It's kind of a cool irony playing that scene too that I like. And I'm trying to remember if Yamamoto, we see him break more and more away from that dogmatic mindset. I feel like we probably do, but I just don't remember enough of Yamamoto's dialogue and actions from here on.
Yeah, I mostly remember because what I brought up earlier with the Fullbring arc, where I'm pretty sure he is also one of the Soul Reapers who, if nothing else, he allows it, right, to for Rukia to give their powers and everybody give their powers to Ichigo.
Yes, he does. He does. I think, well, obviously he would have to authorize it. Yeah,
if nothing else, he allowed it if he wasn't also one of the Soul Reapers who gave some of his power for Ichigo's sake, right? So, I guess not part of the fight, but I do really like how like Orihime is so good. I still love her so much. But like so to correct myself from what I said earlier, because I just noticed that because like they're watching the fight and Uryu's like, you should stand back a little, Orihime. I'm just like he's worrying over her even though like he doesn't have any powers. What is he talking about, right? And then but the way he reflects on Orihime, just like the fact that she just wants to help. She's sort of in a position comparable to Rukia in the Kaien flashback, right, where just watching this honor-bound duel and wanting to help, but not being able to do anything. Where, of course, the difference being that Ichigo is able to, he doesn't like defeat, but Byakuya's not on the ground, but he wins basically, right? And the first thing Orihime does, Orihime just rushes in, and it's so good. But what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you a lot. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. I do the same thing. It's Discord. It's normal.
I'm so sorry, but I have to say, literally, no, you're spitting so hard right now because it's the exact distinction. Rukia is out of the picture now. What does Ukitake say in that flashback? He says, Rukia, remember, there are two types of battles. There are ones to protect someone or to protect your honor. At this point, what relating to even what Byakuya says, like, oh, I was never his enemy. The enemy was the law. Rukia is in safe hands now. Obviously, like if he stopped fighting Byakuya would go after, Rukia and Renji. But, he's not having to protect someone right in front of him right now. Right now, what he's fighting is like the honor in his way as a Soul Reaper. His way of like being defiant against a law that has only seemingly hurt all of his friends. Most importantly, Rukia. And against Byakuya's like dogmatic, must follow the law. It's like, this is, in a sense, even more so than a battle to protect someone. It is kind of a battle of honor to defend their ideology of right and wrong. Byakuya's right and wrong, Nichigo's right and wrong. So relating that to the Kaien stuff is actually brilliant.
I was just going to point out how like I love Orihime. The comparison to Rukia and Kaien was literally just like a spur of the moment thing that you just took and ran with it. So awesome, because I did not think about that before that sentence. So and you went.
That's why these discussions are so cool. Is because we bounce off each other and we can get your observations.
But yeah, because I just like love when Ichigo falls back and just runs into Orihime because she immediately started fucking running once she knew the fight was over. She's so good.
And God, Kubo is so amazing with her characterization because my favorite Orihime moment, and I know people are going to be like, bro, like literally the heart exists, bro. Like, are you crazy? I get it. The heart scene.
Well, that's more of an Okiura moment, to be real.
Yeah, true. Also true. But literally, my favorite Orihime moment is the scene where she's selflessly healing those Arankar girls that were just
my god
physically abusing her a moment earlier, and they're terrified of her. because
Dude, it's so
it's
good.
like this benevolence that like is inconceivable of some people. So like,
or I think there was analysis that framed it as like to them, Orihime is the monster because like what she's doing is so, like you said,
well, they
inconceivable
explicitly
to them.
call her a monster.
Oh, do they?
Not
Do
only that,
they?
but yeah,
Okay, I
they
don't remember.
literally
Gotcha.
she's like shaking and going, because again, I remember this scene very vividly because this is my favorite Orihime stuff, and like elevated her even more than she already was, because I loved Orihime already back then at that point. But when she was shaking going, that monster, I was like, that is such a cool perspective. That of course Orihime would look like a monster in this search to someone like her, that they're wretched because all they've ever known in their life is wretchedness. No one has ever, they don't know the concept of benevolence is foreign to them. So of course they'd react this way. It's like an alien probing you, essentially.
Yeah,
like,
it's like seeing a Lovecraftian horror. It just doesn't make any sense.
It blew my mind. I was like, Godbo, bro. Like, holy shit. Such a good Orihime moment. Oh my god. Yes, and it kind of correlates with that because that's who she is fundamentally. It's this benevolence that is like almost inconceivable, and it is inconceivable for certain people. So, yeah.
Orihime good. Shouldn't be a
Orihime
hot
good.
take, but apparently it is.
Somehow, bro. Somehow. Jesus Christ. And somehow people, God, I still see to this day people saying like, "Oh my god, what? Why didn't Ichigo and Rukia get together? Well, this bitch Orihime had no dynamic with Ichigo that was near as compelling as his dynamic with Rukia." It's like, fuck you guys.
They both have good dynamics with Ichigo because Kubo's a good writer.
Anyway,
oh boy.
Whatever. Because I love, don't get me wrong, I love Rukia. Love Rukia. But
and even she and Ichigo are great together in like as you say, in a platonic sense, because that's just how the story ended up. But it's like they still have an interesting relationship and dynamic, and they're still really good. Like, and especially knowing the anime adds stuff, it's like I get it, but we can have like you can still enjoy that even if it's not canon. That's what shippers do all the time. Just enjoy it and just So anyway.
Fuck, where was I going with that? I was going to say something, but I lost it. Shit.
Orihime, people think she's bad.
Dynamic. Oh, no, yeah. I was going to say that, and like, you know, I love Rukia and stuff, but like, you know, I am like, Orihime is like my favorite female character, so I am always going to be biased.
Favorite female character in Bleach, or no? Probably just favorite female character in Bleach.
In Bleach, yeah. In Bleach,
gotcha. Because you didn't.
My favorite female character of all time
is
a woman called Hitagi Shinjigahara from.
I was about to say it's fucking. Of course, it's fucking Monogatari. I was like, wait, hold on, Monogatari's favorite anime. Like, there's no way. There's no way that Orihime is your favorite female character. When Monogatari.
Let's be real here. Shinjigahara is like tiers above. Okay, come on now. No, I'm kidding. Well, not really kidding. But anyway, Orihime is like my favorite female character in Bleach, and so obviously I'm gonna love her dynamic with Ichigo too, and feel like their love is earned at the end of it. Especially given, bro, she fights alongside him in the final battle. How sick is that? How sick is that? That she is.
That's especially comparing it to the both this scene and the Rukia and Cayenne stuff. It's like, she's not trampling on Ichigo's honor by joining him in battle, right? Like that doesn't have to be the way it is, you know. So it's like it's so good.
And I'm going all over the place here, and I'm going to stop after this. It's also a contrasting where she's assisting Ichigo in the Ulquiorra fight, but it's like she's only assisting as much as she can possibly do in consideration for Ichigo's ego in the fight. Like, she's barely assisting because she knows like Ichigo doesn't want that in this fight. That's like a huge emphasis, and that like that's part of her fear of Ichigo, that side of him that she sees with the potential to go out of control, which later does happen. But then to compare that to later with Yuhabaha and how Ichigo literally says like, "Hey, you have my back. Like I need you at my back in this fight." Like, and he acknowledges her and well, no, doesn't he literally? I think he literally says like, 2v1 is unfair, but like I need this. I need this up. As Yuhabaha we're about to fight. So dude, I don't know. They're so good together. I think that. We're going way far ahead. Right now, Orihime, his ability is just now coming into the picture via. Well, no, that doesn't even happen in these volumes, does it? Oh no, Okiura mentions it. I think.
Yeah,
Later
they
on
do
in the
start building into her the true nature of her power, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
the end of the Soul Society stuff. What do you got?
yeah.
What
Well,
things
look,
you
I
gotta
just
say
want to
about
comment real quick because, like, before you get to the 169 where Aizen's revealed, you get the little negative 12.5 chapter, which is just like, oh, a little cute chapter with Toshiro and Rangiku and Momo and Aizen, and it's like
Oh
just
yeah.
driving in
Yeah.
these relations. Like, I just because one of the things that
Comparing
stuck
the
with me
fireworks,
before I got to Bleach, before I even when I'd watched some of it, but before I actually even got to when Aizen was introduced, was that the community's response of Aizen's reveal being just this mind-blowing revelation, and even though I didn't never had that personally because I knew about it before I even touched Bleach, every time I reread it, I still like it's like think about just like the structure of it where it's like, okay, we get the Gin behind Momo cliffhanger in the 168, then we get the little Aizen like slice of life, like calm, comfy chapter, and then we get the actual fucking reveal, like the build. Like Aizen's been dead for fucking 50 chapters now. What the fuck? Like it's just such a fucking good reveal and moment. It's just insane. I the build up and payoff to it because it's just like it's so out of expectation. I just love it so much.
Yeah. It's I so wish I was like. I don't even know how old I would have been. I would have been very, very young. I probably wouldn't have even, at the time. I might have been just getting on the internet. That would have been so cool. Like, Innie's Lobby, too, is another one that I'm really so sad that I didn't get to, I wasn't reading the community reception there, seeing what people were saying. But, this is not my time yet. And I can't really lament on it too much. But yeah, God, seeing all the people, like, go crazy over Aizen's reveal, that would have been so cool. That's cool that you got to see it, though. I didn't.
Kind of, it's like secondhand and just even a bit retroactively. I don't know, just the way because again, people thought Soul Society was the best arc, and I think Aizen was definitely a part of that. Because it's still such a good reveal. Like holy shit. Like just getting to that page of just him standing in the doorway. It's like so it's him. Aizen's back. God. It's just such a good moment.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and by the way, guys, you guys can probably hear that. My roommates are talking. Usually, when they talk like right outside my door for some reason. So if you guys can hear that, my apologies.
See, I did hear background noise, and I was wondering, like, are you playing a HotBoySpicy video loudly in the background of your own?
No, it's my roommates.
I should be able to. I should be able to cut some of it out as long as you're not talking. But if it happens, it happens. So
there's not much I can do. Sorry, it's how I live.
You wouldn't know about this, but there's a running joke on the Weeb Club where because commonly you can hear cars going loudly behind because I moved, but I still live by a road. So there's the running joke of motorcycle guy because like they can hear the engines going by my door or by my window outside. So it's like
okay.
It's an inevitable result of
there you go. Hold on one sec. I gotta mute my mic.
Uh-oh. Was that a fire alarm? I don't know if I'm going to keep that in the discussion, but it's funny, so maybe.
Ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way.
What was that?
So, okay.
I thought I heard like a shrill like fire alarm kind of sound.
Yes, that's
oh my god. The HotBoySpicy is too hot. He's spinning too hard.
I'm getting a little bit too inflamed by this talk of background noise. I feel... No, so these apartments, okay, if you cook, and it's every apartment I've ever lived in, if you cook and don't put on the exhaust fan...
Yep, I've had that happen.
The fire alarms are super sensitive, so yes. it'll immediately go off in any smoke. That's what just happened, because now they got the exhaust fan on. They should put it on immediately and they start fucking cooking, but it is what it is. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Minor interruption.
Understandable. No, I've done the same thing when I was living in another person's house, and it's so loud. But anyway,
it is very loud. Sorry about that.
But yeah, Aizen comes in, he stabs Momo. I love the line he has about adoration is the furthest state from understanding, which he's basically spelling out like Momo and even Soifon's character.
That is such a good line.
God.
It's such a good line.
Yes.
Oh my god, I love that line so much. Holy shit. It is actually like literature peak type of line. Like
It's
oh
so
my
bad.
god, motherfucker! Like, how can these people like Kubo draw so like it's not even exceptionally well. It's like they're like in another dimension, but also right, and not just right, but right,
Dude.
really enthralling dialogue. It's like these. I will never be able to touch these people. Like they're just on another level that I am. Like maybe maybe I can get to a similar level in Dragon, but I'll never be able to draw like them too. Simultaneously, the fact that you can have so many skills and like perfectly utilize them in the medium is
that's
just,
the thing about Bleach, because I love Naruto, I love One Piece, but Bleach in like various technical aspects is so just phenomenal. It blows my mind. Like you're saying, how the fuck can Kubo do it? It's not fair. God gave him all the talent. What do I have? Like that's.
Yeah.
I'm being hyperbolic, but it's like Jesus fucking Christ, he's amazing.
Fuck you,
right?
Fate.
Like
This is my fate to be worse, to be just a peon in comparison. That line.
And on a weekly schedule, this motherfucker puts
Oh
out
god,
20 pages
dude.
a week.
You're making me feel even
How?
It's so true.
How?
Though. It's so true. That's the worst part about it is, but they're on a weekly grind. Not getting. Kubo even has, in one of the volumes, he literally talks about his sleep. He's like, bro, I've been sleeping like 3 hours a day.
Sleep?
Like,
what is
bro,
that? I had that
if
once.
I was sleeping
God.
3 hours a day, I couldn't do anything. I wouldn't be able to get out of fucking bed. These motherfuckers are pumping out peak. It's like, ain't no way. They're just a different. They're on a different level.
They're built fucking different, man. Built.
I gotta find
different.
solace with it that I can only reach similar heights when I'm like at my best.
There's a line I really like in a manga called Ten, which is a mahjong manga where one of the main character, Akagi, I don't know if you've heard of that series, but he's also the main character of a prequel series, but he tells some life advice he gives to another character who's like kind of talented, but ultimately nowhere in the class of like these geniuses in mahjong like Akagi. He says like, it's okay to be second rate, and it's like, I don't know, there's something comforting about that because, like, I don't know, it's just like, yeah, just maybe, like, there's nothing wrong with second place. Even if you're in second place, it feels like it's the worst thing ever, like you were saying earlier, right? So, I don't know, just thinking about that while we're gawking about Kubo being just fucking a crazy person. God. But I was gonna, anyway, point out more relevant to the material is, Hitsugaya Toshiro's reaction, because like I don't know, I like how Askin put it in one of the comments where just like, because he has the his volume poem says something to the effect of like don't be afraid of the world of deception because the world is built on deception, which the fact that because he is questioning things in some ways, like he's trying to like figure shit out and actually challenge things, but there's, I don't know, his character in general comes from this, like, he seems just very cynical and above it all in a very childish way, because that's another part of his character is he is a child, and there's a way level at which he's like rejecting that childishness, like, because he is a captain, but he doesn't like Momo calls Aizen in the -12.5. Momo calls Aizen captain, but she won't call Hitsugaya captain, even though he's also a captain, because like she doesn't see him as like an adult, right? And his Bankai literally turns him into an adult finally, right, when he achieves his full understanding in the Thousand Year Blood War. But like, so his volume poem, he's like seeing himself as above it all. But at the end of the day, he's still just a kid. He still doesn't get the world. He doesn't really understand it. He just thinks he does, and that in itself is childish, right? Like feeling adult and wanting to be an adult, right? So it's God, and just Aizen just fucking destroys him, and it's good.
Yeah, it's. I think the poem is "Do not fear deception. The world already lies atop deception." So basically,
there we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering it, or pulling it up. Either way, is helpful. But
the last line, I think there's more before that, or maybe that's all of it.
Some of them are pretty short. Some of them are pretty long. So I don't remember. Oh, and another thing about my more of my personal reaction, because like because I knew about Aizen, I knew about Gin because I remember when those chapters were coming out of him fighting in the fake Karakura Town stuff, of him having the fucking 13-kilometer long Sanpakuto for his ability. Just remember, so I knew that Gin was on Aizen's side. I did not know that Tosin was on Aizen's side. So when I first read it for the Nen show, I just had that reveal of like, oh yeah, Aizen works with illusions. Oh, so the blind person was on his side the whole time, and it was like, fuck. That was I got to remember my first reaction there.
Yeah, I guess I haven't brought that up yet, but yeah, that's something I did notice. Like all their abilities are also predicated on like an illusionary techniques or Well, I mean, Tosen's like deprivation, but it's like it is
It
sort of
still revolves around perception, basically, right? Just cutting off instead of literally creating an alternative like a fake perception, right? So yeah. Um,
yeah. Let's see here. Do I have any observations on like stuff outside of Aizen? Well, I guess we could keep talking about Aizen. Do I have anything super interesting to say?
He has his other line about how like the Aizen you knew never existed, which I've kind of talked about a bit with just like his fake persona. He also does literally say I think Momo, he's like, I killed her out of compassion because she couldn't live without me. Or he says something to that degree, like very driving home his like how like because I talk about him being Aizen Myo, compassion hidden behind anger, and it's like it doesn't seem very compassionate, but like there is a level at which like if Momo overcame him, then she'd become stronger for it, but she won't, so she stays weak even throughout the Arrancar stuff. So yeah. And also just like the way the rug gets pulled under Ichigo, where it's like he literally just came off his victory with Byakuya, and then Aizen proceeds to stop his Bankai with a single hand, like effortless, a finger even, a single finger, effortlessly.
I don't know if you remember how that's adapted in the anime, but it's even cooler.
I never saw that part in the anime, so maybe I would have seen it like on YouTube years ago, but I don't remember.
Okay, so it's actually really fucking funny because what happens is. Ichigo's theme is playing during that. It's like the now you feel like number one when he's going in against Aizen, and then when Aizen stops the sword with his with his palm with his fingers, the song just cuts off abruptly. It's
yes,
yeah,
dude,
yeah, it's
holy
really
shit,
cool.
That's
how
great.
they adapt that, yeah. I also want to say in regards to Aizen's perception of the Soul Society, and especially their perception of adhering to a sort of an unchanging, fragile system, I think it's really cool that the person that you see most willing to be at the forefront of change, other than Aizen and Ichigo, is Ukitake. But Aizen doesn't ever acknowledge Ukitake because Ukitake himself is fragile and he's always sick. And he doesn't have that presence, that power. So in a sense, it seems like, we're Aizen's whole perception, yet there was someone always near him that was very willing to look beyond the surface level portrayal of everything and see the incongruencies and the oddities in the system and question it. And he was literally willing to fight it, even if it meant fighting against the man he respects most, other than maybe Shunsui, Yamamoto. He was willing to take down their sacred fucking blade. He was going to destroy it. But again, Aizen seems to almost overlook him because, Ukitake is a sickly guy. But even
I like how you were talking about it, where it's like, because, Aizen's not matched by anyone in strength, in intelligence, or in, trickery.
And shrewdness, right?
Ukitake, shrewdness. And Ukitake, he really doesn't, I mean, he has a strength for sure, he's a captain, but with his sickliness, he really doesn't, like, he still has value in that, he is willing to challenge the system, after Ichigo and Aizen, like you said, he's the one most able to, but he's just held back by his health, so, I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
I just thought of it, actually. So,
that's fine. But I mean, like, I just the whole scene is good with him just like explaining what he was doing, from this position of power as a way to like, because like you could say like, oh, does he need to do this? But it's like, he's driving home what he's done, and like, I don't know. I think it makes sense because it's like he wants to be above it all. Like the way he says like at the end when he leaves, it's like I will stand at the top. So to go back to the Nietzschean philosophy, there's the idea of the Übermensch or the Overman, the one on top, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what Aizen is. He's very much meant to evoke that idea because, like, one of the ideas with the Übermensch is that they challenge flawed systems and overcome them, basically, and that's literally what Aizen's doing with Soul Society.
But what's really cool about even the visual representation of that ascension? This is something I just thought about while you were talking. Is that so? If you look at the elevator he's ascending in, it's like light, right? It's like yellow, like it's like purifying light, like a stream, like a raying stream. But like, where is he rising to? It's this dark fucking, like, there's hollows, and it's like it's completely black. And so in actuality, he's rising to like a potentially like a worse environment. I think it's you can look at it as a representation of where he's actually ascending to, a place probably even worse than this like stagnant, fragile world that he looks down on. So and loathes. Yet where he's rising to is potentially a place even more putrid than that. And I just thought about that symbolism, how he's in light, kind of relaying his perception, but he's not looking at, since he's looking down, he's not looking up at where he's rising to, a place potentially worse. So I just thought that's kind of cool. It's even in the visual representation of that scene. Because in color, the where he's in, I know you can't see it in black and white, but in color, I'm pretty sure it's like literally yellow. It's like light that he's in.
Well, I was also going to say, speaking, you mentioned color, like one of the chapter where Ichigo gets his Bankai is a full color chapter, and I did not go out of my way to find the full color version of it, because like you don't get full color chapters anymore, because honestly, it's probably for the best, because like apparently like Toriyama for Dragon Ball at one point did 5 color chapters in a row, and it's sort of because it's more difficult to do, because you basically have to draw more, right? Because you're not just drawing the manga.
Oh, when I said so, I thought you meant like it sucks that like at least
it does kind of, but
I was gonna say what I was saying that sucks is that like I couldn't see it in its color form.
Oh, that's normal.
Where I was
because even like that most volume releases are like that, so it's like that. Yeah. That.
Not the fact that I want them to slave away in color consistently, just the fact that when they do the color, I can't see it in the volume.
Yeah, because I talked about in the first episode about how like, hey, here's all these manga authors. They struggle to make art now because their bodies were ruined doing weekly serialization. And color chapters were credited to like part of that reason, right? So so it is unfortunate that we did lose them. I agree, but but it's also unfortunate that like. Because it's like they'd be more expensive. Like, because I do have volumes on my shelf that do have the color pages. Like, there are releases that maintain those, even, but they're definitely not common, and they're certainly not, because they're more expensive, right? So especially when Bleach was being released officially, it was like it's not a it was a profitable title, but it's also like to a smaller market than we have today. Like manga market is so much bigger now for English releases. So
Which, great. Yeah, it's good. I guess there's not really much more on Aizen. We can, unless you have even more up your sleeve.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, cool. So Unohana is actually a big part of this final shit. I honestly didn't remember Unohana being so epic in this final stuff, but of course she is. Everyone's got to be healed. I don't know. This is like something stupid. Like I'm sure everyone and their mother has noticed this, but I literally
might be
thought of this. Like literally Unohana's hairstyle even goes to masking her former presence as Kenpachi, because she's literally got a battle scar there where her
on her neck, right?
That is literally, I think that is just the whole point of that hair. It's a stupid hairstyle, and it's kind of funny to me because thinking back to how I felt about Unohana's design back then, I thought it was really charming because it's just a stupid hairstyle. It's like, wow, you idiot! Why are you putting your hair like that? It's so cute. But no, there's like a practical reason she does it. It's because she's hiding the past that she doesn't want, because she's not the Kenpachi anymore. She wants the new generation, Zaraki, to inherit that. And her whole goal, even to be a healer, is to propel that forward. So it's really, really cool. I hadn't noticed that before. I was like, oh, wow, even her hairstyle is meant to...
Yeah, I thought you were going to point out the scene where, because she's like, hold on, let me find it.
Is it where she's scaring Squad 11?
Yes. Where it's because at first,
so good.
Because especially knowing that she's actually terrifying. Like
she's actually the former kid, so of course they're going to be scared, because it really plays around with that dynamic. Given that we know that Squad 11 are literally the opposite of, I think it's her Squad 4, right?
Yes.
Where they're not really that battle hardened, where they're all about healing, and then it's the opposite for Squad 11, where they're all about battle. They're not about keto, not about anything else. Even Bankais is like taboo for them. They ain't gonna do anything but fight with swords and be and be ultra, roided up and ready to battle. But to see them to a squad captain that's just all healer based, be scared of her. Only in retrospect does it become super, super cool, because in that moment, at least probably what I was thinking all the way back then is like, oh, this is truly separates the captain status from, because even Unohana is all healing based.
I was just thinking about it in a just an anime trope kind of way of like the mom being this
the mom always being
has an authority that even like a younger because she is a
That's
captain, so like you could read it in that way, but like she is a captain, and like and I just love her line of like, your lives are, just remember, your lives are in our hands, which obviously has a double meaning of like we're doctors healing you, but also we could kill you if we want.
Yeah, we could just leave you to die. True. Yeah. Another hard line.
She's so good. Holy shit. Yeah, because I was gonna point out, because I haven't. I'm gonna try and check, because there's a few cover pages or color spreads that are that have all the girls in swimsuits and stuff, and I'm pretty sure I had it told to me, but I never verified that in none of them can you see where Unohana's scar would be, basically. Even though she'd be revealing more more skin, basically, but it's still just carefully, kind of like how in One Piece, Nami's tattoo is hidden before with shirts before you see in Arlong what her tattoo is, right? So just similar kind of concept, but
And now that I'm thinking more about Kenpachi and Unohana's dynamic, oh my god, wait, I just brain blasted a little bit, not hugely, but it's something that I hadn't thought about extensively before. But you could really see this is why Unohana could never become a Kenpachi like Zaraki, is because for her, you can see her stepping down as a Kenpachi as more of a, in complete contrast to Kenpachi. Why would Kenpachi never do what Unohana does? It's because Unohana places something above battle. What does she place above battle? The balance and the maintenance of the Soul Society. Soul Society first and foremost. The only reason someone would step down from a position is by thinking of the grander objective, like greater than oneself. Like, oh, if someone has more potential and is even stronger than me now, that means that they can service the Soul Society that I love more than me. So it's only right that I step down for the unit. Look at Kenpachi. Kenpachi would never do that. So you can think about even the reason why in the first place Kenpachi is able to be on a level that Unohana could never dream of being, is because Kenpachi embodies the idea of a Kenpachi more than anyone else, because truly his first and foremost is the thrill of battle. It is battle. He lives in battle. He lives battle. And the Soul Society is secondary to that, maybe even tertiary. But for Unohana, you could see that as, well, she could never be as good as Saraki, because Soul Society for her, like most other captains, is first and foremost. The whole of the Soul Society is the most important. I just thought that is, which really,
actually
really cool.
That also makes sense, because I even pointed out like the motherly thing, but she was with Yamamoto. Like, she's like, I think there's only 3 Soul Reapers, the other one being Yamamoto's second, I forget his name, but his second in command. I think those are the only 3 Soul Reapers we know of to have like been there at the start of Soul Society, basically. So it's like she's she's, if Yamamoto's the father of Soul Society, then she's the mother of Soul Society. So it makes sense that she'd care so much about its success and like proliferate, how it's doing, compared to, of course, Kenpachi, who only cares about strength, right? So
of course he would be able to ascend to higher heights if that is, because that's what a Kenpachi should be. A Kenpachi should be a someone who cares so much about battle, it elevates their position as a Kenpachi. That one dimensional, that narrow view, that only looking in one direction is sort of the sharpest weapon of all to use for the Soul Society. And it's really cool that Unohana takes that and is able to weaponize it for the Soul Society's benefit. But the only one who could do that is someone like Unohana, someone who Kenpachi can respect because of her previous status and who she is, and that her love for her thrill of battle, the only one that has it to any remotely close degree is Kenpachi, is Unohana. It's just not to his degree, right? It's not her first and foremost. It's not her number one. The Soul Society still is. But the fact that she is an individual that Kenpachi can respect makes it so that the Soul Society can put Kenpachi to use. Without Unohana, you don't have that. Kenpachi would still be a loose cannon in the Thousand Year Blood War, probably. But yeah, that dynamic. The more I think about it, the cooler it becomes. How Unohana submitted not out of reluctance, but out of but out of her love for her obligation to the Soul Society first and foremost. I think that is really cool.
God, it's just Bleach is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like there's some good, like, I don't know, I like the wind down of Soul Society because you just get these fun character interactions, and the Aizen's gone, so the tension is relieved, and like one of the scenes I like is when Orihime is taking the dress Uryu made to Rukia, and she's just so like, why would he go through so much? Oh my god, I'm so smart. my first woman intuition moment of just like,
my first woman intuition, and it's so because it's so funny too, because even the term a woman intuition, well, she's not a woman, and it's played up that she is the reason why it's so wrong. Even the childish like, oh my god, it's like it's so like it's so bereft of any like true like experience and knowledge and wisdom, because wisdom comes with age, right? She's not a woman, so of course she's not going to have really good woman intuition because she's still like a 15-year-old. So it's on multiple levels. It's very funny. Yeah.
And just the face she makes when she's like, I'm so smart. Wow, it's so cute. She's so funny. I love her.
Yeah.
But after that, just like the Rukia with learning a bit more about Rukia's past with, like, I think they talk about with Hisana abandoned her and was guilty about that, which I just thought of like that being an example of like Hisana sort of being an extreme of Rukia in a way where, like, because Rukia runs away from, or extreme of Rukia at her worst, because Rukia like runs away and cuts off her bonds from the people she gets close to, like Renji. She left Soul Society, she left Ichigo, right? And so Hisana left her. So it's just an interesting way in which like they're kind of similar, I guess, because but then I guess it's also another way you could look at it is like Hisana is kind of what Rukia might be like if not for Ichigo. Like Ichigo literally saved Rukia, but also like not just like literally like saved her from dying, but also by changing Renji, by changing Soul Society, he helped her as a person, like, because now she doesn't have to run away from these things she cares about. And that's sort of so I think I had another thing to say, but let me read my notes real quick. Did you have anything to say about the wrap up to Soul Society while I reread? Or
nothing super insightful other than the Kubo could not have ended it any better way with the line from Ichigo. Save it. That's my line. Because of you, the rain has finally stopped.
God, yes, it's so good.
What a perfect, you can't conceive anything better to end off such a revolutionary arc as Soul Society. I don't know if I want to call it. I'm gonna stay with that statement. It is revolutionary to me. Okay, Soul Society is brilliant. I have been enlightened. Okay, I don't know how I could have ever had as good as and as fun as the first arc of the series is. How did I have it over Soul Society? How? What was I thinking? I was mad. I must have been mad.
It's good, but it's not. The Soul Society.
It's not Soul Society. It's not Soul Society. Even the comedy stays. I don't know why we thought the comedy would kind of feel like even the comedy's there. Like everything's there. Everything's there. It's great. And there is no part in Soul Society where I'm like, I want to get more to the cooler stuff. There's not even one thing. Even the thing that felt most like that with Ganju's fight with Pretty Boy, I always forget his fucking name.
Yeah,
you showed me a perspective that was also really cool, and now I'm looking at that fight like, oh wow, even that is super fucking cool. So, dude,
well, I really felt that with the like not that getting lots of good things, but like because we got a lot of minor fights with Arrancar coming up, and I was definitely trying to focus like, okay, sit down. What is this fight about? Right, like really just trying to get something out of it, just because they're so small compared to the fights we have coming up. Right. So, and I'm not saying I got everything out of all of them, but like just it's like I want to, right? Like that's what I'm here for. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your effort because now I look at that fight really fondly as well.
Yeah. All right. So now we're into the early Arrancar stuff. And yeah, there's still a lot of good humor. We get Shinji. He's The way that his first title page is like he's upside down in the like the little room with Ichigo is just that he's floating in the air at the end of the chapter and he writes his name backwards and it's like he's such a tricky bitch like from the beginning. Yeah, Shinji's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Shit. I'm just reading. I had a note about Kenpachi that I completely forgot to
Oh, go
mention. I
for
think
it.
it was more toward. It was more toward Soul Society. It is just kind of a cool. I think it's really cool that Kenpachi is just like very accepting of like many different personality types and like like to that guy's more flamboyant nature to he vibes so easily with Yachiru and Yachiru is like completely different personality to him. Orihime, he's like vibing with like he's just like to him it's like people's minor quirks are irrelevant. Like he doesn't see their quirks. He only values people on the battlefield, and he sees their usefulness on the battlefield. That's all that matters. I hadn't really thought of it to that degree before, but in reality, Kenpachi might be like one of the most like progressively accepting people in Bleach,
Yeah,
just because of his like
basically.
just because of his straightforward. Because the first thing I think of is like Yachiru on one shoulder and Orihime on the other. Like it's like he just met Orihime, but Orihime is like, hey, I can take you to the strong Ichigo and you can have a fun fight. He's like, oh, okay, I don't care, Yurioka.
You're the
I don't
most
care
important
anymore.
person in my life.
Yeah, you're the most important. Like, it's like, yeah, it's cool. And I guess, dude, I should have I shouldn't have because there was also something I wrote about. I don't even know if I mentioned it last session. I think it's cool that both Mayuri and Soifon think they're like the first to invent something. Where Mayuri is like thinks he's like he created the first Kompaku with sort of like an artificial like intelligence and like
Mhm.
an artificial soul.
Oh,
Whereas
yeah.
in actuality, I think it's Kubo reveals in a I think Radman is the one who told me this. Like I don't think he explicitly reveals it, but he does reveal it. He did like a question and answer. I think that the kids that Urahara has, they're also
Oh,
they're
yeah.
like the souls with autonomy. So and he made them presumably before Mayuri made his lieutenant. I don't know how I'm forgetting her name now too.
Okay.
Uh,
Nemu.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and with Soifon, and again because the dynamic between their inferiors is
Mhm.
both given that Yoruichi and Urahara definitely obviously have a close bond and they both have like previous subordinates that are always trying to get over on them for one reason or another. It's the same as with Soifun thinking she invented Shunko, but again, she didn't even have like a name for it. Like Yoruichi had to say like, "Oh wait, actually, I already invented this move. It's called Shunko. And by the way, I got a better one. I've invented a better one." And it's like, oh, and then I
Yeah.
immediately thought I thought of Radman telling me about that, about how like I was like, oh, that's so cool that we have both of these people thinking like they had an ingenious achievement and making some revolutionary thing, and then these both characters that are very closely related actually made it a while ago, and yeah, I don't know. That's cool to
No,
me.
yes, it continues to feed into Soul Society's like stagnance and self importance when it's like no, no, you guys ain't all that actually. uh,
Yeah, I think that's that is all I had to say now. Finally, I'm so sorry that we're
okay,
literally
no, you're fine.
backtracking
You're
because of
fine.
me. Uh, yeah, okay, we can move on now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, because I was just starting to talk about Shinji is good. And
Yeah, oh
there was a
Shinji. Yeah, Shinji is he's he. Do I have any notes on? Let me see. I want to make sure that like
because I definitely have one interesting thing I want to bring up. But
I don't yeah, go ahead, shoot. Yeah, because
well,
all I can
it'll
say
be
about
later.
Shinji is
It'll
he's
be
fun.
later. But well, I guess I can bring it up now. So basically, I thought it was interesting how like because he talks or let me find my note on it. Because it's really well because like, I just really like the way that nope, wrong way. So Shinji talks about how like trust, right, and how like I can't trust anyone, or Shinji doesn't trust anyone, and he doesn't think Ichigo should either, right? And I was just thinking about how like there's sort of a flawed way that it like the way this arc opens with everything getting like the way Rukia talks to Ichigo about like and kind of like everyone's pushing things onto Ichigo and slash everything Ichigo's taking everything onto himself, which really culminates in the Ulquiorra fight when he gets pushed to his limits and his desire to protect everyone because they can't, like there's the Chad lamenting about how like Ichigo doesn't trust me anymore, like right, like he's treating the Chad the same way everyone treats Orihime, as like someone who's helpless and needs to be protected. I was just thinking about how like because Shinji is you think they're your friends? Friendship is temporary, right? Like he was betrayed himself, and so he thinks that or he's kind of pushing that onto Ichigo, and like even driving home how like you're gonna be like you have a hollow inside of you. You're gonna go insane eventually, and your friends shouldn't and can't trust you.
Yeah, or more specifically, because when you think about it, he actually always has had the same friends around him. Like the people closest to him are still with him. They're also visors. Mm-hmm. But I think more specifically, it's about allegiances and how allegiances will always be transient, and how like because in actuality, like I think Ichigo literally says like, "Hey, I'm a Soul Reaper. I'm not a visor. I'm not one of you guys. I'm one of them. I'm a Soul Reaper." And I think what Shinji is trying to emphasize is like allegiances are pretty fragile, depending on the situation, which we literally see in Soul Society. Depending on the situation, like you can change sides in an instance because your goals are always going to be to the people relative to the people closest to you, which is your friends. And it's the same with Shinji because who's around him? It's still the same people he had kinship with in the Soul Society. So I think it's more speaking to allegiances and specifically.
That's true.
How, like,
yeah.
You should be with us because it's more beneficial for you in protecting your friends. The friends that I could, because remember, in the flashback, Turn Back the Pendulum, people literally died. People Shinji knew and was close to. And it's because he couldn't see and he didn't understand. He didn't have control of that visor power that they died and they're in this predicament. So yeah, to me, I think it's speaking a little bit more on those allegiances, that idea of allegiances and how it's kind of a transient, fragile thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I was just thinking about in the sense of that, like, by he's poking at Ichigo's like insecurities in ways that like end with Ichigo, like the logical result is Ichigo isolating himself, right? Because like he does go to the Vizords, and even the way like because he leaves because there's a hollow warning and he leaves class and he even says like, oh no, Orihime, you can stay here, right? But Orihime is like she's like, oh, I wanted to lie to get out of class at least once, right? Like because she wants to fight with him, she doesn't want him to get hurt, but Ichigo doesn't want anyone else to get hurt.
But so none of them come up to each other and just tell them how they're truly feeling, this, which is exactly mirrors the predicament between Gin and Rangiku. So even though Shinji, what he's saying is correct, it's only half of the equation, and getting like a holistic solution is that yes, Ichigo should work with the visors, but he should also work equally with his friends that are associated with the Soul Society and the ones in the real world that are also now associated. They're in this together now. They went to the Soul Society together to rescue Rukia, but Ichigo is acting as if that journey didn't happen. He's discounting Chad now. Orihime, he's not telling them, he's not being straight with them, and Orihime because of that is reciprocating with not being. She doesn't want to burden Ichigo with her feelings either because she feels like Ichigo's doing the same too, and that's how it should be. When in actuality it's doing more harm than good. And the reason why she can admire Rukia is like the only one that is brazenly coming in and telling everyone, or telling Ichigo specifically like how she truly feels about the matter. But yeah, no, you're right, because I'm immediately relating that to Gin's relation with Rangiku and how toxic that is, and how that's not like a true like resolution to anything.
And I think it also because I was also thinking about the way like because Rukia like, oh, that's not the Ichigo that I know, and she's like when she's like trying to kick Ichigo back into gear after his loss. But obviously the Ichigo she knows is also flawed in his own ways, right? Like she's holding Ichigo to a standard that like he still needs to grow beyond because in some ways like he was fearful after the Ulquiorra and Yami came in and just for fucking shit up. But like he just the way that like Shinji and Ruki are both kind of like pushing Ichigo in ways that like that ultimately aren't good, basically. Even though at the moment they see there's like obviously Ichigo does need to master his hollow power and learn how the Vizards worked, and he does need to get his shit together and fight. Like Ruki is saying, but like just the layeredness to it of because like
but he doesn't need to do it separate from them, right?
Exactly,
he doesn't need to do it separate from them,
right? And, well, because like especially because I was thinking about like how the Fullbring arc really goes into trust, I think, and so that's why in my brain I had a notification pop up when Shinji brought up trust, because it's like he's bringing up an idea that doesn't really get fully explored until later, because Ichigo's still in like a negative space when it comes to that aspect of the story, right? Like Fullbring is where it's actually like, no, I need to trust my friends and work with them, but because he's not doing that in that Fullbring either, and it's just like just I don't know, the way it's introducing these elements to get explored even after Arrancar, the longest arc in the story. It's like I don't know, it's good.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Yami, I don't know how much you want to touch on this now, and feel free to just go like, hey, I don't want to really talk about this yet. In terms of, I know in our first discussion about how your idea of Aizen and his relation to the rankings of the Espada, have you thought more about Yami specifically?
No, I haven't really come up with anything more yet.
Okay.
I mean, if you have something to say that's building off of what I said, if that's because I can explain because it's a lot is the problem, but I guess I could
which is going to be great because I got to pee anyway, and I'm going to mute myself while you're explaining.
Okay,
hey,
that's fine.
Perfect.
So I'll also go into this because that way, people in the comments who are also rereading Bleach with us can also add to it as we go, because it's still very hypothetical. Not hypothetical. Some of it's I understand fully, but there's other pieces that I needed to put into place. This is what I've been holding on. This is my fucking big long Aizen Arrancar video.
So it's really fucking cool. So
So basically, it has to do. So as I've heard in Can't Fear Your Own World, there's a character who talks about how the Espada rankings are basically like they're. I forget exactly the word he uses, but basically, because in this reading we're told that the Espada rankings are based on strength. That because it's like 11 and before, it's like it doesn't matter. It's based on birth, or there's birth numbers, but then actually 10 through 0, 2 through 1, or as we find out later 0, it's supposed to be based on power. But again, remember, Aizen is all about questioning he wants people to question things, and I'm pretty sure there was in a line in Can't Fear Your Own World that I was told where it's like he just said it was like, oh, it's something about Aizen's preferences or just a whim, right? And you can think about it that way, but I think like, well, no, Aizen does things in meaningful ways, right? Like he wants people to think about things and question things, and like that's kind of what I was getting at before, where I talk about like Aizen and Soul Society is about him. He wants the Soul Reapers to question their systems. So if he made a system of his own, like say the Espada rankings, I think he would want he would design it so that to be questioned in a sense. So the question is like, well, what is the Espada ranking then? Because like I point out to HotBoySpicy way back when, is that it's probably not power. Like because Ulquiorra is like, hey, I have a second resurrection form. Aizen probably didn't know about it though. It's fucking Aizen. Of course he knows about it, right? Like, but he still didn't put Ulquiorra as the strongest Espada, because the Espada rankings aren't really about strength. Or another point I brought up is Eroniro, who, the number 9, he has the ability to take Zanpakutos and gain their memories and abilities, right? Like, he turns into Kaien, basically, for their fight. So in potential power, like, if he ate all of Soul Society, he'd probably be one of the strongest things in the entire setting, right? Like, he has the highest potential power, you could say. So the question then becomes like, okay, well, what's the Espada ranking? And I remember coming to it in part because of Yami, because Yami is number 10 and number 0. So what I realized is that the Espada ranking is basically Aizen's fears. And another way I came to this is because kind of working backwards, I think Aizen's journey might too be, becoming Soul King, basically, because that's his ultimate goal. He wants to turn Karakura Town into the key to open the top of this, the Seirete, and then he wants to basically sit on the throne of the Soul King with his immortality. Because, well, what I noticed is that there's a sort of like there's several events that happen in the fake Karakura Town. No, actually, it's by the time he gets to real Karakura, where he's basically overcoming his fears, where he kills Gin. Fear number 3 is sacrifice. So by getting rid of like the one person he cared about, he no longer has anything to sacrifice, thus he has no reason to be afraid of sacrifice. Number 2 is fear of aging, death by aging specifically. There's a specific word for it with Baragon. He becomes immortal. He can't die. He no longer has reason to fear aging. But then number 1 is loneliness, which Ichigo directly mentions loneliness and how like Aizen was always alone. He was this one who he was born with such great power. Like he never experienced, because they talk about them. There's a mechanic where if a Soul Reaper encounters someone who's like stronger than them, like who's so much stronger than them, they literally can't perceive their level of spirit energy. Like, and Aizen never he literally didn't understand that Ichigo is just that much stronger than him because he'd never experienced that before, right? Like he's always been alone because he's been so powerful, so intelligent, so deceptive and tricky that no one, so he's always been alone, and Ichigo is the person who understands him. He's only able to overcome loneliness in Thousand Year Blood War when he really connects Ichigo. Like, I love the way when he's fighting and Ichigo comes in and he's able to I felt something was weird, so I acted in this way, and Aizen just has a moment of like, oh, you got it, you understood me, it's so good. So anger. So how anger works into his character is, again, I talked about before how Aizen Myo disguises his compassion with anger. So anger being his 10th fear and his 0th fear, it's like he knows that, because a part of him thinks oh, I've overcome my anger, but he recognizes the insidiousness of that, because what happens at the end, I feel like, when he enters his hollow form, when he's defeated and he's raging at Urahara, his anger has taken control. He could not overcome his loneliness, and he could not overcome his anger.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, never mind. Okay,
okay.
This is literally my entire point. Is that
okay? Gotcha.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
No, maybe that was even what I explained before, and you just forgot and then remembered.
Yeah, I guess I forgot it. Yeah, because
that's called
Yami's whole thing is anger.
Not, yeah.
Everything we see with Yami is anger, and then I literally in my notes I have Aizen perceives himself now as above anger, something that is almost not worth considering anymore. Whereas secretly, it's always deep in his innermost core. It's a part of him. It's an essential part of him. And what makes him, and truly, he feels wrath and anger toward the world, where he cannot find anyone to match him.
Yes.
And be and feel camaraderie with. He's angry at the world for giving him a position of solitude, essentially, where it's really, really cool. And because I immediately thought of his final interaction with Urahara in the Rancor, and how he's just not only lamenting, but he's just infuriated that Urahara can't see the same thing he can.
Mm-hmm. But to finish, in the context of Aizen, that feeds into the knowing understanding dichotomy more, because he literally knew that thinking he had conquered his anger was in itself insidious and deceptive to which is why Yami was the 10th and the 0th Espada. But he didn't understand that because he'd never experienced anything that could push his anger to that point until he fought Ichigo and lost, right? So the way that it because I talked about the knowing understanding thing in my my Aizen video, but just it's so God. But the aspect that I would really want to figure out is because is everything before from for nothingness to greed, even maybe his original anger, because if I want to talk about this arc of him conquering all of his fears, then I would ideally want to have all every moment of it, basically. But I can't think of a moment when did he first conquer his anger? When did he conquer his greed? Right. So that's something I want to pay attention to. And if anyone has suggestions, I'd love to hear them. But and especially that's just because not only is that going to be a whole video idea, because I want to talk about the individual Espada and how they relate to their aspects, but just the fact that Kubo had designed this whole system of Huecamundo and the Espada system all to just funnel into Aizen, and just it's ultimately not that ties to all these other ideas of the character, sure, but it's it's just so interesting, and I feel like I've never seen something so big affect something because all these individual characters have their own relations to these aspects of things Aizen, because they also Grimjaw fears destruction, Ulquiorra fears nothingness, they all also fear like that's why Baragon is defeated by like his own power to age things, because he himself is also afraid of dying by being old, right? Like they all fear what they're related to, and just it's just so interesting for the characterization of the Espada and for Aizen, and the fact that it just goes to Aizen himself is like, I really want, that's the video, that's the one I want to do, because it's so good and cool that the story like works that way. I just need to reread Bleach and figure it all out. So yeah,
Nice.
yep, that was it.
It's cool, guys. We're going to be hopefully adding on to that.
Yes.
Actually, not theory. It's canon. Okay, it's canon.
Yeah, no, that's
cool.
it's also
cool
because
enough,
like
it's automatically canon.
because I want to talk about Yami later when we get to his stuff later, because I already have some thoughts on him, because I definitely feel like I'm rare and like Yami defender. I think Yami is good actually. Like because I feel like. Because people were so mad, and to a degree, I think still are, about the 10-0 thing, because it's like, it's just Kubo trolling, LMAO.
Well,
right?
when you look
But
at it from
it's
your
like,
perspective, it becomes
it's so
like,
meaningful and
way
interesting,
cooler.
right?
Yeah,
like, come on. Like, that's where I'm at with
can
it.
you really blame them, bro? Like, it's the difference between, like, a whatever, like, to like, the most cool fucking...
Yeah, that's
yeah.
like it literally goes from a 0 to a 10. Hello?
Actually. Good way to put it, yeah.
God. But anyway, speaking of them, I do really like when they come in and just poor Chad, he just gets fucking ruined. And I did talk about it, but I do like how Orihime is actually able to hold her own more than Chad, even though everyone's like so focused on protecting her. But it's like, no, she's got talent. She just won't even see it in herself, right? So
it's well. I mean, there's even hints of this. And in a Soul Society with Unohana, Unohana's like, oh, looks like she's taken care of.
Yes.
Like she just glanced at it and she was like, oh, okay, yeah, she's
really good,
shit.
yeah.
This Ryoka girl, she's got that shit. And moving back just a little bit though, we'll go back to that
that's fine,
confrontation. I did notice Uryu when they initially get back from the Soul Society. He's looking at Ichigo's substitute Soul Reaper badge and wondering something, he's literally he monologue. You get this speech bubble of him thinking to himself. He's like, "Am I overthinking something? Is that foreshadowing to the revelation about it in the Lost Age arc?"
That it's actually like meant to watch Ichigo, or I forget exactly.
Yeah. I wonder if that's foreshadowing, because I don't know if that leads anywhere.
That would make sense, because Uryu is the one who would understandably be the most suspicious of Soul. Like, I love the way where they're coming back from Soul Society, and he's like, "Next time we meet, we're enemies. Remember, I'm a Quincy, and you're a Soul." And it's like, Uryu, shut the fuck up.
But then Orihime Chad like. No, Urihime goes, but that's what I like about it. And Chad's like, yeah, me too.
They're so good.
True.
Yeah, I do want to say, because I was also looking at the like Yami like about to kill Tatsuki, right? Where it's like, because you talked about it before, where it's like, we do like there's a level at which like we care about these characters who at the end of the day they're only at their most important in the first arc of the story. But it's like when we see Tatsuki about to be killed by fucking Yami, it's like no, don't do it, right? Like you're emotionally like just say someone save her, right? And so it's like it's always cool to go back to Karakura Town and see these familiar faces. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, I can get to this later. In regards, so if we can move back to that fight if you want now.
Actually, because there's also... Oh, we could talk about Okiar, or you mean Okiar and Yami?
Yeah, because I thought you might have more observations there. Or just more things to say in general.
No, I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
A little before that, because we see the Soul Reaper with an afro, and I think Keigo sees him and says something, or I think that someone mentions Don Kanoji too, and I realized that it's referencing, because we didn't talk about the volume. I liken them to the cover stories in One Piece, but they're more like volume insert stories, which isn't as easy to say. But it's like it's interesting to see it being directly referenced in the story, because I don't remember noticing it before. But it is like, oh yeah.
Direct reference to that stuff going on. Yeah.
Yes.
Just fun times, fun shenanigans in Karakura.
And I don't think I have anything else to say about the Ulquiorra and Yami stuff coming in, because it's like I Ulquiorra good. I
Yeah,
like
we
him.
we all
But mostly
kind
for
of get
stuff
what's going
later.
on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or go on.
No,
What
no,
did you want to bring
keep
up?
going.
I was
Because
just gonna say,
this
because like
is
art wise, I was just looking at the page where a hollow comes out behind Uryu, and like the way the sky is like folding like a blanket kind or something, or a sheet or a curtain is really cool art wise. Even though it's a pretty small thing. And then after that, I was going to talk about maybe talk about the Grand Fisher stuff if you had anything to say about that. But
let me check. I might have written something about it. Oh, I did. I guess I did. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you start off. You start off.
Yeah, I was going to talk. Well, because like I guess he's very much a representation of like Ichigo's past, especially in the first arc, because it's like he himself appears to be a representation of Ichigo's grief with losing his mom, because at this point in the story we're supposed to think that he killed Misaki, and he even talks about the size of his blade, which was also a talking point with Ichigo, right? But Ichigo has grown beyond Grand Fisher. He's refined his blade to a smaller form, even though he has so much more power. And where Grand Fisher, he's basically like he's like a child in a sense. Like he's even he itself is like a low ranked Arrancar, right? And then what I talked about before, where Ishin understands that Grand Fisher wasn't really the one responsible for Misaki's death, so he doesn't struggle with him. Both because like he's more mature and older than Ichigo in some ways, but also that like he's not wrapped up in the grief of losing Misaki relevant to Grand Fisher, because Grand Fisher wasn't the actual problem, so to speak, right? So but yeah, what did you have? Did you?
I actually wrote more on this than I didn't even think I wrote anything on this, but yeah, I wrote shit for this. So I linked it back to Ichigo versus Grand Fisher in the first arc, and how. In actuality, Ichigo himself was never fighting for vengeance. He was fighting to redeem himself from the weak little boy who couldn't protect his mother to now someone who can protect something, who has that strength. That's how I read that fight. But in reality, not only is there so much he doesn't know that Ishin does, but like for instance, how she could have easily protected on that night if it weren't for like the Quincy circumstances. But he also doesn't win because if again, not only is this redemption for being unable to protect, even in this fight, what makes him what makes him, what gives him his strength, that idea of protecting something, he's not fighting for that here. So of course he'd lose, right? Rukia, he actively, shooed Rukia away from this fight because it was a fight out of consideration for his honor. But in actuality, that's his hubris, which is a part of him. That's speaking to his hubris that I later, that becomes more and more prevalent in Rankar. But that's not his most pivotal strength. That's not what gives him the most leverage in these fights. It's his ability or it's his capacity for wanting to protect and using that as a weapon. And the fact that he's only fighting for himself here, that's not who Ichigo is. That's fundamentally who he's not. So of course he's going to be weak. He's going to be showcased as being weak. And extending this to Ishin, he's like, it's really cool reading this because he's just so matter of fact in his handling of Grand Fisher. Like it's not, he doesn't even look at it as it's like, oh, this is the hollow. Like he doesn't even look at it as like, oh, this is like the hollow that like because of the circumstances it ended up putting the final caboose on my wife. But instead, he like gives him a lesson. He's like, hey, this is his Zanpakuto. This is how it works. This is why I'm going to BTFO you and your weak scrub. It's just another hollow extermination to him, and that's kind of how he treats it. Of course, he does say that with Urahara, he's like, yeah, I feel like a little bit better, but it's like not substantial at all. Like it's all very casual. Because, and like you said, it's because you can't really blame the hollow. Like hollows will do what hollows do, and really the root is like Yuhabaha and his ultimate plan. But like, yeah, I mean, even if you could put the entire blame on the hollow, it's like that is what hollows do. It's to be expected. But yeah, it's cool to see that like he contrasts Ichigo, and that like Ichigo's whole battle is about being below Grand Fisher because Grand Fisher's manipulation of the situation is making Ichigo not be true to himself, Whereas Ishin, in contrast, is so far above Grand Fisher in his thinking. He knows so much more than Grand Fisher. He knows so much more context than Ichigo, to where like he can just swipe the blade and be done with it, and not even give a badass quote to his wife in the process. It's just a matter of fact. Contrasting it, especially with Ichigo's fight, I think it makes it even cooler. Because where Ichigo it meant everything and he failed, to Ishin it almost seems like it means nothing, and he like effortlessly succeeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Because I don't think I have much more to say about that.
Nothing really that crazy. I just thinking of the two in comparison. That's it.
But yeah, I think I already talked about like Rukia a bit, and because like her comeback, like her being in the window and it just being this big spread is just really fucking cool, because like, yeah, she hasn't been out in this, like, I mean, she hasn't been active in the story for really since it began as a Soul Reaper, right? But and she'd been missing for a few chapters since they came back from Soul Society, and this is just her coming back. It's like, fuck yeah. But I also love her drawings coming back when she's talking about like Aizen, and she draws a little like bear Aizen with glasses and her little cute Ulquiorra and Yami. I kind of fucking love it. It's very good.
It's great. The doodles are always a treat.
God.
How could Ichigo hate them? They're so good.
Peak fiction is just shonen characters drawing like cute little doodles. Like I'm remembering Luffy's drawings in One Piece. It's peak shonen. It's just peak.
Yeah. I guess in relation to Ishin, I did write a little bit about like White as a manifestation of the different powers Ichigo has inside. I see White, even in the power White utilizes, like in retrospect, it's like a perfect depiction of the union between Masaki and Ishin. Because White, what does he use? He uses not only Ichigo's Soul Reaper powers from Ishin, but he utilizes like the hollow inside Masaki. And extending this to like the Quincy aspect, you could see the fact that Zangetsu is a separate entity, depicting the separation of Quincy's Masaki does by finding union with a Soul Reaper, and how Zangetsu kind of represents that. I don't. It's just how that's orchestrated. How literally like you can see the union represented in White, and then you can see the separation of the Quincy and Masaki easily with Zangetsu. It's like Kubo had to have this planned. No fucking way.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
It so seamlessly connects.
No, when we first learned about it, it blew my mind when I first read it, because I was like, I just had that realization of like, oh my god, Zangetsu and White have literally been connected since we first saw them, right? Like, it's like literally, Ichigo's Hollow and Quincy powers are intertwined with each other, like, and it's been that way since the beginning. It's like, fuck, so it's just like, God, the foreshadowing on point. And
I think it speaks even more that the last identity that Ichigo learns that he's associated with is the Quincy, and it makes the most sense that it's most shrouded in mystery, because it's the path that his mother walked away from, right? So of course that would be the one that's most shrouded, the one that would take the most effort to illuminate. It's like, oh my god! Everything compounding on Ichigo, especially in the idea of looking inward to progress and to transcend. You cannot conquer. I don't even know. This is probably not even. You can't conquer the world unless you conquer oneself first, or some shit like that. There's probably some quote akin to that. Bleach, I think, is like the story I think of. I think of immediately when I think of like that concept. It's like, the idea of like. Before you can't fix the world unless you can fix your own circuit. Unless you can't clean up the world unless you have to clean your room first in order to have the wherewithal. Or actually, no. I think it's more so. What is it? What is I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to find the quote actively while I'm.
I think I understand the sentiment of the quote. If
no,
nothing
but
else,
I think there's literally a quote. It's like it's. I mean, you can't expect to clean up the world if you can't clean up your room, basically. But I think there's an actual quote that I just can't remember. But yeah, it really like the way the Bleach dives into that concept. It's like true strength comes from within always. and that's really cool. I like the concept, and I like the fact that you can so easily point out every little path Ichigo has taken, all the little bits of knowledge he has to accumulate to get stronger is like always right before him. And when it's revealed, it's like, oh yeah, it was always there through Zangetsu, and through his separation, because he's not one with White. He's the only entity that is separate from the Soul Reaper and Hollow shit with White. That union depicted through White. Why is Zangetsu alone as the Quincy power? It's like, well, that makes sense too, because of Masaki going against Quincy dogma by literally leaving that family and like ending that pure bloodline and mingling with the Soul Reaper. That's like an ultimate transgression for both sides.
Yep.
And speaking of transgression, that is literally like what a Hollow is. Hollow's seen as by both entities as something that needs to be, it needs
stopped.
to be, it needs to be stopped, and that's White's main thing is it's like a Hollow.
Also, I just realized because we talked about how Ichigo understood standing Uryu's grandfather better than him, but I hadn't thought about how because Uryu's like, you're a Soul Reaper, I'm a Quincy, but Ichigo's literally born from a Soul Reaper and a Quincy. Like he is Uryu's grandfather's ideals in personification, basically, and yet Uryu's they don't understand that about Ichigo being a Quincy and a Soul Reaper,
and I guess speaking of fathers and their dynamics, we can talk a little bit about, because that happens that we finally get more Ryokan stuff. Ryokan,
yes, we do,
and it's cool shit.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I got anything major out of it. I did notice the recurring mentions of silver, which every time I just had something go off in my brain.
You're so right.
And it's okay, well that was established as being a Quincy thing, for a while. But it's hey, you have to be in this room that's partly made of silver to gain your powers back. It's like, okay, so you're connecting silver to the powers of the Quincy. You don't say. It's just hard. It's hard not to think about the silver because everyone's so mad about. Not everyone, but many people are mad about that. So,
which is, dude, people are even mad about bro. People are mad also about the Zangetsu shit at the end. What ultimately defeats. Other than the arrow, it's also the Zangetsu coming out and being sliced. By the previous form of Zangetsu,
yes.
And it's like people are also upset about it. It's like, bro, but you just don't get. Maybe
it's
they
so
do
cool.
Get it. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
I don't know.
I only wrote one thing though in terms of Ryukin. He says something interesting. He says you must swear to never involve yourself with Soul Reapers again. And I was wondering while I was reading this, is this because of his own experience with when he associated with the Soul Reaper, the tragedy that happened, his fate changed essentially as soon as Ishin came, both Masaki's and his. Masaki's, maybe even to Ryukin, he sees Masaki's fate as ultimately bad, that she died too early, maybe, because we know Ryukin. Still cares a lot for it.
I think Radman even pointed out how because there's or maybe it was Askin. They both have long comments, so I easily forget who said what. No, it was Askin. He said that in chapter 8, Ishin was like, "Hey, tell the bosses to request from Kurosaki to get 4 ambulances." Ryukin works at a hospital.
Yes,
they've been working together since chapter 8.
Dude, it's so stupid that I didn't catch that immediately. I feel but it's so obvious. Of course,
right. So it's hard because I didn't dwell on that because it is odd that he says the Uryu don't get involved with the Soul Reapers when he himself is literally involved with the Soul Reaper. If not Ishin, then he's. I guess Ishin and I forget if they're working with Urahara as well. Or if that, they're not in the system.
At least Ishin is. I don't know.
Okay, gotcha. But either way, Ishin and Urahara are Soul Reapers in the same way. Ichigo's a Soul Reaper. They're not really part of the system, right? So, because in theory, they're potential allies in the eventual war against the Quincy's, because ultimately, Ryuken and Ishin know what their deal is, and they are not into it, right?
Yeah. So what my perception of that is Ryukin is doing this because he doesn't want to see Uryu get hurt in the same way he did. Because that ended up happening. Like he I forgot her name, Uryu's mom.
I don't remember her name either. Yeah.
Misaki ends up dying, but not only that, but if Ryuken, I don't remember, I don't even know if it's ever stated how much Ryuken truly knows. Like if he knows about Yuhabaha and knows about the circumstances of Uryu's mom's death. I don't remember.
I feel like he has to know something because like he was literally him getting the silver for the arrow was when Uryu was a child, right? Like
okay.
So he has to have known something because like he would have known that this has an effect against Yobak. Like he knew that because otherwise why is he gathering this silver from those dead Quincy's to make the arrow?
Yeah, there's
right?
I can't wait to get 1,000 because there's so much I don't remember. But
God,
where I was going with this is he probably knows that like Uryu is going to have to come to be in a, because he knows that Uryu has such a deep respect for Quincy's and like the Quincy cause and all that stuff. Ryuken's probably thinking like with Yuhabaha in context, like there's going to come a day if he keeps intermingling with Soul Reapers that he's going to have to make a very hard decision and probably have to like end up betraying his friends. So maybe in Ryuken's mind, he's doing him a service by saying, cut them off now, otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt by sticking to Quincy. Like that's what I was thinking.
No, that makes sense because like when we first see Ishida in that or Uryu in that arc, I'm pretty sure he's on the side of the Quincy's, but he was a double agent, right? Like, like so because obviously he's never going to betray his friends because we know how much he cares about them. But no, that makes sense of just like if Ryuken thinks that because like ultimately Uryu's rejecting Ryuken's like don't follow your grandfather's legacy, don't get involved with the Quincy's, and it's like, well, fuck it, if you want your powers, okay, sure, but just stay away from the Soul Reapers because that's going to be bad for you if you stay with if you're try to straddle the line, and because it's like you either have to go against the Quincy's you idol or you're gonna have to cut off your Soul Reaper friends. So I think that makes sense.
I don't know. Maybe that's not the case, but I think that makes sense. Makes sense to me, but and it makes
at least
it cooler
at present,
too. That's really all I have for the Ryuken stuff. Everything else I think is pretty explicit. It's like, they're got to train. He's got to fight. He's got to dodge. He's got to dodge. Dodge.
But yeah, I like the scenes with the Soul Reapers when after they like break off to patrol town, and it's like Rukia's getting back with the family, and but more
bro, it's so good.
I love.
It's so good.
Yeah, no, it's good. I love Ikaku and Yumichika being like, these prepackaged rice balls. That woman behind the counter can't have done this much. There's something shady going on. They're so fucking stupid. I love them. Holy shit, it's amazing.
God. It's so good.
Yumichika's like, yes, I think I was just thinking the same thing. Like
these guys are fucking stupid, but it's great. I love
so big brained it wraps around to being small brained. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And even a little scene with Rangiku and Orihime, and not even talking about their amazing scene beforehand, but just them enjoying like. I thought no one would ever enjoy my cookies. Like, what? It's great. Like, it's like, wait, is Orihime actually cooking in the kitchen? Like, is it just is the combination?
Is it like anime girl food, like bad, or is it like just I don't remember that coming up actually. So unfortunate because she does eat and cook for herself alone. So it's like if she just became accustomed to her bad food, then like but I don't know. I just never thought about it a lot. But yeah, no, of course, and the scene with like her being like envious of Rukia and just like sat and just not wanting to trample on worry like just worrying like, oh, should I should be happy for my friend, but I don't want to get in their way because I care about them both, and but it's like, what about your feelings, and they're good.
It's God, that scene is you know what. Oh my God, I just got dude, in real time, I just went back to the past. Oh my God.
Brain blast over here.
This is amazing. You know what? On Toonami, English dub, when I was a kid, I watched this scene. And it's one of the first Bleach scenes I've ever watched. And I remember being glued to my TV. Not just because of Rangiku's bustling assets, but because like I remember like, oh, it was a legitimate good conversation. And I was like, oh wow, Bleach is pretty cool. I need to pay attention because I remember my only other real exposure to Bleach was seeing like a scene or two here and there, not really paying attention to it, but then like being mesmerized by the openings. This I think was the first scene I'd ever seen. I happened to see on Toonami that like I sat down and I watched the entire thing. And I was like, huh, I don't know what the context is, but this seems serious and this seems pretty cool. Wow, that just came to my that happened. Wow, cool.
Nice.
Nice blast from the past. Yeah, really. Yeah, I know it's a random scene, but I guess it's a good scene.
That's what flipping through. That's what you can't really do that nowadays because it's like people don't watch TV anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's like nowadays your first experience to Bleach at best would be like a TikTok meme or something. I feel like, right? Or a
that
Twitter
is
clip
dude. That
viral.
is so weird to think that my generation of kids was like probably like the last generation of kids that would do that consistently. Gen A, I don't think is. So I'm Gen Z. Gen A, I don't think they do that. That's crazy.
Yeah, no.
To think about.
Because because
so much of my childhood doing that.
Because like my first experience with One Piece was an issue of Shonen Jump, and it was the Zoro versus Kabaji fight, which was really funny because the first time I saw it on TV, I was just flipping by the channels, and in that brief moment when you see what's on TV before you change the channel again, I saw Zoro winding up to it was literally the end of the fight, same part of the first fight that I read, where it's like I literally like went back and saw Zoro do his onigiri through the 4Kids stuff, and I was like, hey, I recognize that because I read that fight like 5 times,
so
and then I kept going to what I was originally going to watch. So just but yeah, you can't do that anymore because you going through channels just isn't a thing, right? Like, what does that mean? Like switching between shows on Netflix? It's like no, not really. No. So it's just more, TV's just does it. It's not the same anymore.
There is a sense of beauty in stumbling upon gold. There's a something that it's just you can't get in the other.
No, you talked about with Naruto. Also, you just like stumbled across it and it became an obsession because it's like, whoa, this is so cool.
Never seen anything like it when I was a kid. Even with one, by the way, I remember my first exposure to One Piece too was through an ending. The first thing ever of One Piece I ever saw. We'll never forget. We had a small little TV when I was a kid in my kitchen. I was a small kid too. I was probably like 5 or 6. It was the One Piece ending with Robin on the lookout perch, and she's like watching the shooting stars, and she's waking everyone. I don't know if you remember the endings of One Piece.
I vaguely. I watched a lot of episodes. I watched every episode that ending would have played on. Like 15 years ago.
The entire ending is like
years ago.
The entire ending is literally like Robin. She's in the little lookout perch. She's got a coffee, looking cute as fuck, and then she looks up and you see her see something, and then with her ability, with her limb sprouting ability, she's waking up everyone, like pushing everyone, and they're all coming out. Below deck, and then they're like, oh, and then you finally see it's because they're shooting stars, and it's like, oh, it's such a beautiful. That's the first thing of One Piece I'd ever seen.
Yeah, just some crew camaraderie. It's really neat. Yeah, nice.
This is off topic as hell, but we were talking about Toonami and shit, and I have a lot of really touching memories about Toonami. Toonami was it was the time to be a kid. It was the time to be. a kid.
Oh yeah, sure. I same. I watched a lot of shit. Honestly, some of it I'm just, oh god, I haven't thought about that. There was a fucking samurai puppet show that I just remembered. It's like, oh yeah, I saw ads for that, but I never watched it. Now I'm like, was it good? I don't know. But anyway,
just I guess on the note of like the different parts of Ichigo, I really, really dig the whole idea of like when you take in another part of another faction, the stronger you become. Because I like it in terms of like this is like my MO in these podcasts. I feel like I talk about mindset. I emphasize it so much. I guess I think it's really cool. I guess
I think it's important and relevant, like recurring.
Yeah, you can extend it to the mindset idea because I think with the power also comes more understanding of that opposite faction. With the Vizards, they take in more of the Hollow. With the Arankars, they take in more of the Soul Reaper, and there's more understanding there. And you could qualify it by saying like with understanding and you have a more well-rounded mind, which perfectly harmonizes with like a more robust mindset. More, you can see more, therefore you have less to fear, right? The unknown is like the root of fear, basically. Like we fear that which we cannot see is literally the first fucking right. Like
maybe that's a little important, right?
The more you understand, the less you have the fear. So of course, the stronger your mindset, the stronger you are in battle. I don't know. That's just a note. I guess I
think,
wrote down. But,
well, I mean, like, because I'm literally thinking, because like, I specifically want to try and talk about all the little minor Arrancar fights to see if there's anything interesting there. But like, you can talk about that with like the first one with D-Roy and Rukia, because like, I just think about like, because D-Roy is just really cocky, and Rukia makes this circle on the ground with her sword, and he just flies up in the air. He's like, "Ha, you can't get me!" And then it's like, "Nope, my ability doesn't work like that." And she literally kills this guy before he even transforms into his a release, basically, right? Like, and potentially became a real, like, this is Rukia with only like a fifth of her power. Right, but because this guy was so cocky, and I was also just thinking about how like his arrogance, and that just feels very Soul Society, right? Like he's representing something that like Rukia has moved beyond, because she had that arrogance, especially in chapter 1, where she's like, don't talk to me, I'll kill you, with Ichigo, right? Like she had this pride over him because she's a Soul Reaper, he's just a regular person, right? And also the fact that her ability is about like, she creates this one circle on the ground, because a big part of her character, because she moves away from things, and she, but so here's her power that, now that she's gotten her powers back and she's grown on as a character, it's about staying in one place, right? Like it's a less extreme ability compared to her Bankai, but it still has that same idea of just like a zone on the ground, I guess, So yeah, there's just I was just picking a few things there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then I guess also speaking of that fight too, that's the first time we get to see her Shikai. And we see that it's the only Shikai that is pure white, which I immediately thought of in contrasting Ichigo's pure black, Zanpakuto. Well, especially
see, you don't get a HotBoySpicy black and white. They're a pair. They're meant to get together. Kubo doesn't understand his own story. Exactly.
Well, literally, the note I wrote down is like, oh, it's like yin and yang. Together they are stronger, right? Like it's perfect balance, like perfect harmony, right? They are, they bolster each other's strength through their memory and through their support. Minor.
It's still good
thing to say, but nonetheless, I think it still goes to their dynamic and how they. I mean, we literally see like Rukia, hoisted him up at the beginning of the series and granting him the ability to protect, and then Ichigo returns the favor by protecting her from like the stagnant wall. This idea together bolstering each other, they're stronger, and it's representative of the yin and yang symbolism of white and black. More symbolism. Not more spicy. You just poetic. You say
it's fine. Your confidence is broken. This man, he's so insecure.
No, it's not even. No one. No. Here's the thing. It's comments in my head. I'm literally schizophrenic, bro. There's no one is commenting this shit. No one is telling me, like, bro, you're too like. Dude, like in the past, people like I've gotten like maybe 2 comments that said like, bro, like just get to the analysis, bro. But like that's like in compared to like the thousands of comments I've gotten about loving my style, it's like it's nothing. But I feel like maybe sometimes I'm a little bit too. I get a little bit too deep
very
into lost
normal. Because I kind of don't read comments on my YouTube videos anymore, because 1, I just very rarely, if ever, got much out of them, and 2, it's like the negative ones stick out way more. I can bring up like 5-year-old videos and I still remember negative comments on them, because like that's how long they've stuck in my head, versus like all the positive ones that just kind of blend together and you don't think about, right? Like, so no, I understand where you're coming from 100%.
But, I mean, oddly enough, I actually really appreciate negative comments. I do. I truly do. Nothing can stick with me like a negative comment, because I take that stuff seriously. You, even on my like Sakura video, for instance, you left really good, long, constructive criticism, and I want to see that. I want people to hold me to a standard. I want people to see me as a guy that has a standard to be held to.
Instead of comparing you to YouTubers that you don't like and making you question what the fuck they're talking about. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the. I forget. Sage's Rain or something. I haven't watched any of their videos, but I just remember seeing on stream being like, just like don't, because like they compare and then you're like, but I don't. Their videos aren't good, unfortunate. So I don't know. I can't make a judgment. I'm just commenting on that because I think it's funny.
Anyway, Rukia cool. And Grimjow dope.
God, Grimjow's so cool.
No! Rukia, no!
Yeah, we just did a whole ass arc about saving this girl, and you're just gonna fucking ruin her day, you motherfucker, Grimjaw.
Fuck. My
yeah,
queen.
right. No. No, literally Snow Queen, I think, or maybe it's,
Speaking of death in the Arankars,
yes,
that's cool that we see both Arankars talk about not bothering introducing themselves to dead people, but while all the Soul Reapers ask for names in advance, still with the same assumption that they're going to kill the opposing party, but it's cool to see that discrepancy. Like the Soul Reapers have a code bound to death, and of course they would, because their whole things is surrounding humans' deaths and like kind of purifying them, remembering. Didn't Rukia explicitly talk about this and the first arc about like how we got to remember everyone we purify, and like maybe not. I might be just
no,
making this shit
I
up.
think it's the opposite, because I remember with the Hollows, the idea was to attack them from behind because you don't want to learn their identity, because it becomes too personal.
Oh wait, yeah, true. And then now we're getting basically Hollows, just a little bit more Soul Reaper, but they want to know. Oh, interesting. The more human they become, the more Soul Reaper they can become, the more. I don't know.
Because I was gonna just bring up, maybe this will jog something, because a bit of historical context for like sharing your name to an opponent, basically. So during like fucking Edo period kind of samurai, like maybe before, I don't know my Japanese history super well, but I just remember hearing about this because it's relevant to some other things I like as well. But basically, when two samurai would fight each other, they'd tell their names to the opponent, because if you kill somebody and it was like an important, crazy, cool guy, and you didn't know that, then you don't get any fame or glory from having defeated that guy. So there's a mutual, like, if I defeat you, I defeat someone, and you're someone who's important or notable, then I can get the glory and fame from having done that, right? So it became practice for when two samurai would fight each other, they'd introduce their names to each other. Kabuki plays would then use that as a narrative, like, exposition element, because they could introduce a character by like they have these two characters fight each other, they tell their names to each other, and it's like now the audience knows these character names, like, organically, without narration or text bubbles, because obviously it's a play, you can't do that, right? And how do you and that sort of carried over to, like, other Japanese fiction. Like, the one example I thought of is if you've seen, like, Transforming Heroes stuff, like Power Rangers or Tokusatsu, like Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, or stuff that's inspired from it, like Magical Girl stuff like Sailor Moon or Precure, they say their names when they transform, right? Like they're Sailor, she has a pose, like, in the name of the moon I'll punish you, she's Sailor Moon, right? That derives from the same trope of kabuki, basically. So it's basically a very samurai thing to do, and so that's what's like where Ikaku's like, share your name with me even if you're going, you're just going to be a dead man. So, and yeah, with the Volcania, I think is his name, or maybe that's just his ability. I forget.
I do not remember.
They're all they're I kind of forget about these fights because they are really minor. That guy's the one who fights Ikaku, right? That fight to me is very memorable. I love this fight. Oh, really? Okay.
I love this.
Cool.
Wait, you don't love this fight? No way.
It's okay. It's good. It's just like, I mean, like.
But the quote, "He'll die happy" with Ikaku jumping in. That's good.
Yeah, it is good. Okay.
He'll die. Okay, I get it. It's not super.
Would
deep,
you have been able to name him 5 minutes ago?
Cool.
Without looking it up?
Okay, well, I don't remember the guy's name, but okay. I think this goes. I think I even said this in the last.
No, you're bad with names. I understand.
Episode. Like, well, not about being bad with names, but the fact that, like, I've always loved Ichigo versus Ikaku, even though, like, not seemingly a lot is going on. Just because
that makes sense.
I love. I don't know. I love Ikaku's mentality. I love his vigor. I love his. Yeah, I love that idea. Like he'll die even in the face of, like, if he dies. Mm-hmm. As long as it's in battle, no matter the context, he's just gonna die happy. It's cool. It's just cool. Yeah. I don't know, the way presentation matters a lot to me. Going back to JJK, a lot of the reason why my experience was dampered is because I don't like Gege's art. I don't like the way he choreographs his fights. With Kubo, it's the exact opposite. I think there's a beauty to be said about putting the right set of words with the right visualization, like. That, to me, that's so, it's such a bombastic, like, it's in my, I can perfectly visualize the panel in the quote, he'll die happy, with Ikaku smiling, jumping in. The art's so good. It's just like, that's manga. That is manga. That's the feeling I get. Like that. It's just emotion. It doesn't even have to be deep. It's like you get a hard ass line with a hard ass art, and you're feeling it. Like that's a lot of Ikaku's fights I feel for.
Maybe I was like being subconsciously like just not dismissive of these fights, but like down on them because like they are more minor in the grand scheme of the arc, and like obviously I'm thinking forward to fucking Wakamundo where it's got the fucking Espada fights, and it's like, dude, fucking Kenpachi versus Noitora, you got fucking Ichigo versus Ulquiorra, you got fucking like Mayuri versus fucking a guy whose name I'm never gonna fucking be able to pronounce.
Because like
right?
because this is ironic because like we were just talking earlier about Wakamundo, about like how I've consistently not liked a lot of the fights, and here I am talking about these fights that you see as like way less, entertaining as these. Which, granted, I'm going to grant you a lot. The only fights I really care about here are, well, but then again, there's not really a lot of fights. I mean, the only fights I care about is Ichigo versus Grimmjow, Rukia versus whatever the fuck his name is, and then
D-Roy, and
Ikaku versus whatever the fuck his name is. The Renji stuff, whatever. The fucking Toshiro stuff, even more, whatever. I don't give a shit about the guy in the fight. Like, oh, they got, they were nerfed, whatever. Who cares? Like, yeah, it's cool. Like, yeah, but the Ikaku, I don't know what it is about Ikaku. Again, I think it's about the presentation. The revelation that he's got a Bankai all along.
No, I was going to say, because you talked about the,
like, bro, it's so good. It's such a cool Bankai.
Like, you talked about the one panel that you like of, like, he's, what was, or fuck, I already,
He'll die happy.
He'll die happy. Thank you. I was trying to find the panel. I couldn't find it. But for me, it's the panel that's really struck about the fight is the Bankai panel where he's just like looks fucking crazy. Like he's the smile on his face, the blood all over him. It's like, let's fucking go.
It's so raw. It's so raw. The fact that bro, this is where we learn. All along, this motherfucker has been captain class. Bro, I was live reacting to the little flashback sequence we get of Renji and him. And like, that fucking respect on Ren, it's so weird. Because I didn't remember that scene, but it's so bizarre to see like a lieutenant have such respect for someone lower than him.
A third seat, right? Yeah.
But then you get the context that, to Renji, this guy is like captain class. Like he could easily, and the only reason he's not is because he's got even more respect for Kenpachi. And then the level of respect when he's like he's like, bro, like I can't think of anyone else but you. But when Ikaku like puts his foot down, how Renji, it's just this level of respect. Renji immediately concedes, and he's like, yes sir, I understand. He like bows to him. Like that respect there is like not only surprising, but it's so, again, the only word that comes to mind, and I said on stream, I was like, this is raw. This is shonen. like it's so simple, but it resonates with me so much.
Okay. No, because I was gonna say, like, if nothing else, like I definitely think it's the best fight in this group of fights for sure.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. It's really good. Well, because I was gonna also point out something regarding Ikaku. You probably already know this, and maybe everybody knows this because it came up with One Piece. It's kind of like a childhood trivia thing with Pokemon. But like the carp and the waterfall, right? Where basically, if the fish climbs the waterfall, it becomes a dragon, which Magikarp becomes Gyarados.
The one myth / folklore I know. One of the ones.
There you go. Yeah, and of course with Kaido, he has the fish fruit model blue dragon, and then Ikaku, it's referenced with his volume poem, I'm pretty sure. But because like as we find out with the flashback to Kenpachi and stuff, it's like he sits like because he like you said, he's captain class. Like he can.
His thing is literally a dragon, isn't it?
Yeah, he is a fish who can become a dragon, but he wants to stay under Kenpachi. He wants to limit himself because right. So is it really? I think it's really called attention to in the Arrancar stuff because he literally gets defeated off screen, and I'm pretty sure maybe it was Yumichika or one of the other characters mentions how it's like you're limiting your potential, right? Like you can be stronger, but like there's a level at which like he's holding himself back, right? So he's a lot like Kenpachi in that way too, because Kenpachi's always also holding himself back. But I think the difference with Ikaku is I feel like, at least in the main manga, like maybe there's a Camp for Your Own World or one of the other novels, but like I feel like he doesn't really get resolution to that. I don't remember if he gets a big fight in Thousand Year Blood War, basically. So because
Unfortunate.
obviously I talked about Kubo's failing health, and it's like, yeah, I imagine that was one of the maybe he just wasn't planning to get. I don't know. It feels weird that like this character doesn't get this resolution after what was built up, but so it's.
At this point,
really
bro, my love for Ikaku is boundless. So that's
the Chad of Soul Society? Question mark. No. Which sucks for you, especially like thinking about like because now I'm just thinking about how it's like he gets two fights that we've read two fights of his that you really like, and then remembering it's like but it doesn't really get a resolution to his character.
Yeah, and now that I'm remembering
manga,
Fate Katakura, I didn't really care for it because with the knowledge, knowing that like Ikaku doesn't get much stuff after that, I was like, oh no, don't remind me.
The fish
Not
never
the
becomes
Ikaku,
a dragon.
anything but the Ikaku fall off.
No.
Anything but the Ikaku fall off. No.
But yeah, I still like and then of course the way the conflict turns out, where the Arrancar dies, but he gives his name, right? Like he there's a level of respect he has for Ikaku. Like he gains humanity through the fight in a sense, because before he was only focused on survival, right? Like life and death. He was in that animalistic mindset still, but through fighting Ikaku, he's able to get a little bit of humanity in the end, basically. So it's good. I think he said like, I'm glad you told me your name, because he cared about more than just life and death, basically, is more what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. Cool shit all around.
Yes.
All around. Dude. I kind of want to get a little bit into that because it's around this section where we get to the really important
chapter
Ichigo
0
chapter.
Side A. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel like I need to send this to you, bro. Radman. I was talking to Radman about this chapter, and this motherfucker blew my mind with side by side. The last page of this side by side with a page from 1,000 Year Blood War.
I'll put it on screen when you send it to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find it right now. It's up here somewhere. It's sick. It's fucking great.
Because I know that Yuabak is framed as fate, right? The moon is is inescapable fate, I suppose. Like, and they talk about the millstone of fate in these chapters, and he wants to shatter fate. So that's what he does. He cuts through the moon cutter. He defeats Yuabak.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but is that the pages you were going to show me, or is it something else?
Yeah. That's
okay.
it. So this is the. For here, let me do the side by side.
I stole your thunder. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're so fucking good. Yeah, you can steal my thunder anytime you want. I feel like I need to show you this. I think more than the stealing thunder, this is what
having the visual thing, like, because I didn't have like the Zangetsu volume pages of him facing forward and him facing back later on in Thousand Year Blood War. Like, I didn't have that. Like, having the visual, it's a visual medium, and we're just talking about it. There's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
So.
This shit, bruh. This shit is so cool.
Yes.
This shit, I was like, bro, he literally shatters fate. He literally shatters fate at the end here. And the visuals of the black and white, really just like, and the moon above it. The moon, because the moon, that's essentially what it represents. And Bleach is like that fate that seems to be unchanging. And that's, the reason why moon cutter, right?
Oh, actually, speaking of because I just remembered, so because obviously, like, we were talking about the moon symbolism, and like Yuabak is partly obviously, like, we talked, Byakuya and Ichigo can also be represented by the moon. Like, symbols can be multiple things, but and Aizen is the illusory moon. I was going to talk about that in a more metatextual way, because people like Aizen has a lot of presence, and obviously Soul Society is the best arc, so there's a level at which like Aizen's defeated. Why is the story continuing on after that? But Aizen, he's the fake moon, right? Like, he's also a fake antagonist, right? Like, Yuabak's the real moon and he's the real antagonist. So it's just a neat way in which, like, that makes sense, because like Aizen appears to be in control of everything. Like, I've been keeping tabs on you since the moment of your birth, right? With Ichigo, right? Or I've had your. So he said something. So, the line, the moment. I'm butchering the line for sure, but you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yuobak actually is in control of everything and has been watching Ichigo. Like, he's literally been with Ichigo since he got his Zanpakuto. Like, since the fuck, if not, no, since birth. Like, because
since birth, since birth. Since he's a Quincy, since birth.
Exactly, right? So it's like, it's just like, Aizen as the fake and Yuobak as the real one. It's just like, yeah.
Just how, like, the fact that the moon is here in this chapter, and we see the moon so much even in these sets of chapters that we're on in these last two volumes, because it's at nighttime when all these fights are going on, and there's so many panels. I picked up on so many panels where we see this exact same moon, this like crescent moon that showed in the to shatter a fate panel, the exact same style of moon. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
like this. It's just this showcase of like fate. Like, oh, it's their fate that they're going to lose to Aizen. The Ron cars are so powerful. Even before this happened, we get the exposition from Hitsugaya, from Toshiro, about how if Aizen potentially has like even like 10 Arankars that became Arankars from being what is the Vasto Lords. If he's got like even like 10 Vasto Lord Arankars, then they're like doomed essentially.
Yes, and oh boy.
Well, no. He just says if they even have 10 Arankars and some of them are Vasto Lords or something like that, which ends up with they got.
Well, then they literally after that it's like, oh yes, Okira, you're back. Tell us about tell your 20 brothers about what you found, and it's like,
shit. Oh shit. So yeah, like that it's. I feel like that can be extended here. The representation of like, oh, look at this. Like, this is not just a daunting task. This is so insurmountable. It almost seems like it's fate that they have to lose here. The illusion, the illusory moon, right? Like what you were just saying, like how it's an illusion, like how they're all winning here, right? But it's under that moon, right? That Aizen's moon, because in actuality, these guys were like the weak bunch. And only Ichigo, the moon cutter guy, with the Zangetsu, sees, a sneak peek of that power. Not even.
Grimjoler is like, capacity. Dog, I wasn't even fucking trying. You don't have a chance. For sure. Well, and I was even thinking about how, because we also see the moon in Huecamundo, but it's not, because it's like framed behind Ulquiorra when he uses his resurrection, but it's also not the real moon because they're in a different plane of existence, right? So but anyway, I'm trying to know if I have anything to say about these other fights, because maybe it was just the Rukia and the I do like Ururu, Urahara's girl just being actually like threatening one of the Arankar is really good, because it's like she just goes into like kill mode, and so that was fun, just watching this small child in pajamas just beat the shit out of one of the Arankar who was giving Renji trouble. Is Urahara just created an artificial person that is just really strong. I like that.
Dude, I'm like thinking. I'm so sorry. My mind is in symbolism land right now.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm getting. I was thinking about moons, and I was thinking about how, like, thinking in respect to, like, even in real life, about how we always see the same side of the moon. Like, it's kind of the idea of fate.
Oh yeah.
And the only way to not see the same side of the moon is to have the ability to fly out of Earth's boundaries, and look at it yourself. But the only way to cross boundaries, as we know with Ichigo, is to look inward, which is ironic, because if to go out of Earth, you got to go outward. But to actually propel yourself outward, you have to first look inward to cross those boundaries. Boundaries meaning like his identification of like his hollow powers, his Quincy powers, and only by seeing the part of the moon that is unseen, and only through comprehending and seeing all of the moon could he shatter fate, could he destroy that moon. He had to understand it. He had to understand all of himself to see the other side of the moon, to see that holistic fate in order to shatter. I don't know. My mind is. This is sometimes what happens. I get off into symbolism land, and I get distracted.
Keep it in mind, and
I'm gonna keep that in mind. I know that's not going not doesn't really have much momentum yet, but maybe that's going somewhere. We'll see.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the other three fights, and all I really have to say is like, I mean, you have some highlighting of like Hitsugaya. Well, because like he's commenting on his Bankai, but as we know, it's incomplete because Hitsugaya still has growing to do. But and yeah, I guess like I saw that they're animals playing with their food when reality, like it quickly turns around. The hunted becomes the hunters become the hunted, I suppose, and just playing into the animal motif a bit. But yeah, not super meaningful unless I'm just completely missing
Yeah.
some stuff. So yeah. Um,
And a lighter note, I don't know why, but literally the last panel we get of this episode is Ichigo walking in on the Visors and like ready to train with them.
yes.
The dilapidated building, like with the missing floors. Immediately, I thought of Gon and Killua and Hunter x Hunter being confronted with the Phantom Troop. For some reason, I was like, "Bro, this is so Gon and Killua
just the
with the
destroyed,
Phantom
yeah,
Troop."
the
Holy
destroyed
shit.
building. Yeah, no, I see it now. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's makes
I don't know
sense.
why I thought of that. This read through, I was like, "Bro, this is just like." Obviously, it's just visually a lot like that, but no, that not really an observation, but something nonetheless. Um, that is all I had. Yeah.
I was gonna say because I do have one more thing because I was kind of comparing well because so when Ulquiorra comes back and he's like, yeah, Aizen, I went against your orders, I did not kill Ichigo because it wasn't really worth it, and Aizen was okay with that. But in comparison, like Grimjo, he went out and he got a bunch of Arrancar killed, and Tosin was not happy about that, so he cut off Grimjo's arm as punishment. Like his justice is like you went out of line, you disrupted the peace, or in a way, like Tosin is kind of like carrying over some aspects of Soul Society. But Aizen let
Whereas Aizen's
Ulquiorra.
able to look deeper into it.
Yes, well, because Aizen
understand
ultimately,
the root
like
of
again,
why he's doing
yes,
it. Yeah.
because like again, Aizen created the Espada system because he wants them to challenge the systems he's put into place and question them, right? But ultimately, they're animals. They're very focused on survival and dominance and violence, right? So they just fully accept this ranking of power. But
there's
but
even
there's even
more there
yeah.
too. Yeah. Well, you
Well,
might be
I was
getting
going to
into
finish
it,
the
yeah.
thought because he lets Ulquiorra go against what he wants because he wants them to self-actualize. He wants them to have humanity and do things that aren't in line with his systems, like just like he wants the Soul Reapers to go against Soul Society systems, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that Tosin is kind of forcing his he's because that's what Grimjo did too, but because Aizen just seems kind of flippant about it. I mean, Gin even says like maybe you knew that Tosin would do that after what you said, and he's just like maybe but it's like I don't know. I was just contrasting the difference in how Ulquiorra his transgression is treated versus how Grimjo's transgression is treated, because obviously Tosin is more important with Grimjo's one. So I was just thinking about it.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And obviously there's another layer in that Aizen definitely knows at his deepest origin. Ulquiorra holds immense disdain for Aizen, especially because where Grimjow used to be was his version of being at the summit, and now he's completely subservient to someone at the true summit. Or at least,
But did you mean Grimjow was? Or I thought I heard you say Ulquiorra is resentful to Aizen.
Did I say Ulquiorra? I meant Grimjow.
That makes sense, right? Because exactly. Grimjow wants to be on top because he's afraid of destruction. He's afraid of being killed, right? So
because I was going to say with Ulquiorra is willingly subservient to Aizen, whereas like Grimjow is doing it because out of survival, he's got to do it. He grits his teeth, while he's being ordered around. So in Aizen, when I look at Gin's quote, that playfulness Gin is talking about is probably Aizen also kind of testing Grimjow with just with an inquisitive mind, like, will this be enough to? Because he knows Tosin's going to cut off the arm or do something. Because he's playing with both of their emotions. He's like, will Grimjow lash out if Tosin does this? He's like, let's wait and see. This will send Grimjow over the edge. That's what I was thinking when I was reading that section. I was like, oh, he's such a fucking sadistic fuck. He knows what's going to go down. He knows how Grimjow is going to feel about this. He already hates his current position, but having to swallow this too. He's playing around with their deepest qualms. And it's cool.
And one more thing that I didn't realize I forgot to mention, because at the end, when Grimjaw leaves, Ichigo says, like, I couldn't defeat anyone or protect anyone. I lost. And I was just comparing that to, like, because Ikaku, like, victory is being alive, right? Because if you're alive, you can fight again, you can live, right? Like, sort of.
Their fight.
Ichigo would rather die than lose, basically, right? Like, because he, like, as we see with Ulquiorra, right? He's willing to fucking become a monster to avoid losing, right? To make sure he can protect everyone, right? So it's just interesting, just another example of Ichigo's negative mindset that he really has in this arc. So yeah, just.
Well, isn't that literally a huge focal point even in the Kenpachi fight because of his training with Urahara? He's like you have to you can't think of anything else but victory. Victory is what matters, and he's telling himself like it doesn't matter.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know really how this concisely connects in a thematic way, but I do remember there's something along the lines of like it doesn't matter if you don't win, you must win. He's telling himself in Kenpachi, and that's literally the mantra that's ruminating before he goes hollow form against Sulkiora.
That's true.
Gotta save her, gotta win.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we're about done with this episode of Bleach. That was a long discussion. I mean, oh my god, it was 4 hours.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, hey, this is expected. We're getting more.
It'll turn out to be less. The recording was 3 hours and 57 minutes, I should say. Obviously, the edited podcast will be less than 4 hours, but Jesus Christ. So I didn't even notice, honestly. That's why I'm reacting, because I was like, wait, where did my day go? No, it's fine. This is what I was here for, but damn. No wonder I'm hungry. I agree. So all right, thank you all for listening, and we will definitely see you a couple weeks from now. Thank you guys. And have a good one. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Oh wait, we're reading the next 8 volumes. That's it. Bye.
Yeah, be here for the next one.